and get started. Thank you all for being here. This is way more people than we've ever had in this room. That's good, but
We're here for the
It's
barbecue.
the cake.
and the food is actually for everyone. So all our guests here, if you want some food, please help yourself. We're going to go ahead and get started. We certainly have a quorum, so I don't think that's an issue.
I should announce that, Baji is, and Debbie Stigora and Alex Montero are participating remotely, and they've done it through all of the proper channels. So, you don't have to vote on that. They've done whatever.
Okay, terrific.
They can vote.
Okay, very good. And so do we want to say anything about? Oh, and I did want to mention that, so you see the microphones down the whole table, you got these little discs and they're red, that means they're off. But when they're live, everyone there can hear everything you say everywhere.
Everything?
And I know.
I've tested it.
Okay, so.
Everything.
Behavior, people, that's.
So when they're,
But I
sense that they're live, and when they're red, they're not. So I'm warning people, everyone, I got your warning.
I'll hear you.
All right. Very good.
It's okay, we're politicians.
It's still hot.
That's why he's warning us.
That's exactly right. Okay, Jackie, can you confirm the posting of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, any changes to this?
There are no changes to the agenda, and next is just public comment.
Okay, so we have public comment, and we basically afford public comment to be 3 minutes. And I believe we have one, Nikki, you ready?
Me too.
Oh, two, okay. Nikki? Good evening. Yeah, right there's perfect.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki Negretti Mitchell, Redondo Beach right-of-way homeowner. Here today on behalf of Right of Way Redondo Beach Quality of Life Coalition. I'm representing 1,100 households that run up and down the right-of-way around Redondo Beach through Lawndale. And so back in the very beginning, there was a report then called the 2006 Harbor Subdivision Transit Analysis. And it looks to be what the Metro team were working off of, and by no fault of the current Metro team. In it, we found erroneous data that matched a lot of the harmful rhetoric used against us for more than a decade. The number of Redondo Beach households were grossly underreported, and that was the start of some of the most overused misinformation. In order to protect the integrity of the Greater South Bay, it would definitely have been best to double check data and reports on the proposed communities, especially since whomever conducts studies on the proposed routes are probably not locals familiar with the area. Redondo Beach had to learn the hard way through assessments, thorough assessments need to be made. Soils need to be tested, accurate measurements need to be taken, residential properties need to be counted, adjacent infrastructure needs to be inspected before years of community intimidation takes place. This would save a significant amount of time, money, and headaches. You can't help but wonder, why is it that concerned Redondo Beach citizens have to take so much heat, and what fuels these smear campaigns? I graduated from Gardena High School back in the 70s when we were the Mohicans, and I thought that was pretty cool. I remember Kenneth Hahn, and I voted for him several times.
Thank you.
Because everybody really liked him as a leader. I had friends all over the South Bay and Torrance, Carson, Wilmington, the beach cities. I worked in Manhattan Beach for 8 years and was well recognized up and down the Strand whenever I roller skated back in the 80s. I never in a million years could have ever imagined the intimidation and dismissive comments I would have to endure as a homeowner later into my 50s and now in my 60s throughout the Green Lines project's process. I'm asking you all to have a heart and protect our integrity to live peaceful lives in our South Bay homes. Please consider the sanctity of 1,100 homes along the right of way.
Thank you very much. Heidi Osborne.
We were done with Metro for the day. One more Metro. Okay. I made my own copies today about 3:30. I've only got 5. You get one.
Ooh,
And you get one.
I got one.
And I can mail them. I've got a PDF at first though. My PDF is back here. Who else thinks they need one to see or to share?
We can share. I'll take
You-
pass it along.
Okay, okay, anybody else?
Heidi, you have to you have to give us one.
Give the.
Well, I can try to keep this one.
No, but we need one for the
You got that
record.
one
Give
for
it
the record?
give it to me.
Here,
Give it to me.
okay, you all know I come from a family of 9 kids. I can speak over everything.
But first, who drew the train?
Oh, that's clip art.
It's very nice. It's very nice.
I just want to review some of this. The first one was through the row in Lawndale. And it really is peaceful. And here comes the choo-choo train down the track in the center. The row is 100 feet wide, but then it narrows to 75 feet. And the reason I say that these houses were built in the 1980s in big, bold letters so that everybody can see it is because the DEIR said that all the homes in Lawndale were built between the 1930s and 1970s. So they probably didn't. I don't even know if Metro knew what they were buying on the row when they bought it, if they were looking at 1970s maps. Okay, these narrow the row, and there is like a choke point there. But I'm not here to talk about Lawndale today because I'm from Redondo Beach. So just turn to your next page if you have one, which in my small thumbs. So here's how Lawndale is, the 75 feet. You cross Artesia Boulevard. Now you're into Redondo, and guess what? It's still 75 feet wide for a while. There's a strip mall there. And then you go down and you've got houses on one side and some big developments on the other. And the development that Nikki was specifically referring to in the 2006 report, this 190 unit condo, but it was planned from 2007, it was referred to as 19 units. Yeah, And it's supposed to be 191. Okay.
I missed one letter.
Yeah, just one typo. Okay, so this, again, it's 100 feet wide. And in this configuration, one configuration, you're gonna have to put the LRT stuff all crammed in here at the top of the track. So what are the other limitations? Could you turn to your next page? It's pipelines. We've got pipelines. And that's what? Yeah, that's right. You're right there on the choo-choo train and the pipeline. Okay, so pipeline markers, and I've measured these several times as late as this morning and then yesterday with another Mr. Holler's help. I was going to bring my yardstick, but again, let's just look at the bottom side, which is the west side first. There's a Torrance Logistics line about 25 to 29 feet from the track. That green stripe is the Torrance Logistics marker. So if you walk down, you can see it. And then you have a shell thing, which I had to highlight in yellow because the yellow didn't come through. And
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up. You want to wrap up your thoughts, please? Sorry, it's 3 minutes.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Right?
Okay,
sure.
do you have anything you want to tell us?
I want to tell you that they're going to try to jam LRT here with their more tracks. Okay, with their more pipelines. You can't put the LRT on the pipelines. Are they going to move them to these people's backyards?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I did too much on the intro.
Okay, thank
All right,
All right. President. Thank you.
you can look at your next page on your own and you see how low those houses are compared to the road. Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right.
Okay.
No, I want one more question. I want to ask a question. How many of you have actually been down the road between
Darling, you're
Artesia,
making me look bad now.
between Artesia?
I'm sorry.
No, I just asked.
There you go. Thank you. All right, next item, please.
Next item is the consent calendar.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call.
Who we in second?
Yes.
It's trying to be, I don't know.
Said-
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is a presentation by Supervisor Hahn and Board Member Hahn.
Great. Welcome.
Item.
Okay, we ready? Well, hi, good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me to come tonight. I was asked to just provide a brief update on county government and maybe a couple of things I'm working on and maybe some opportunities that the COG could work with us on some things of our mutual concern. So this year, I've been very privileged to be the chair of the all-women LA County Board of Supervisors. It's historic. Some of you said you remember my dad, right? This was not my dad's Board of Supervisors. So it is unique and it brings a different perspective to governing and different perspective on solving problems in the county. You know, something else has changed since the last time I was with you. Redistricting happens every 10 years. And in LA County, we have an independent redistricting commission. That means there's a group of about 14 people that draw the maps. The county supervisors in our circumstance were not allowed to weigh in on it. We were not allowed to tweak it. We basically had two options, when to accept it and when to put it into operation. So since then, the 4th district has lost the beach cities. So I no longer represent the beach cities. But in terms of this COG, we'll still continue to represent Lomita, Torrance, the Peninsula, San Pedro, Wilmington, and Harbor City. So we know it's a lot of adjustments for the constituents too, and it's an adjustment for the elected official, but certainly the constituents all of a sudden wake up one day and have a completely different representative. But you should be feel good that we all work together. Right, with 5 supervisors, we're all thinking about this as a region, and so you still have my support, of course. I was going to talk briefly about our LA County budget. We're set to approve our $43 billion budget on Monday, and our budget breakdown. There's a slide. We spend about 24% on public safety and protecting our communities, but you can see well over half of our budget goes to health and public assistance. So that's what the county sort of does differently than a city. The county really is the safety net. We're there to keep people from falling through the cracks. People who have reached the end of their ropes, you know, mentally, physically, financially, spiritually. We're there to catch them. So I wanted to talk a little bit about public safety because I know that's always on everybody's mind. We have a new sheriff in town, and Sheriff Robert Luna has been in office now for a while. It feels like it's a big difference, particularly in terms of his approach to public safety and also his approach to the Board of Supervisors and how he is working to collaborate with us on solving the problems that we share together. And despite what anybody says, there is no defunding of the sheriff in LA County. I can't speak for other cities or other agencies, but in LA County, there is no defunding of law enforcement. In fact, the sheriff's budget is $3.9 billion, and that's actually up from $3.3 billion back in 2018. But you know, the real challenges for us in the sheriff's department are vacancies. We have about 1,100 vacancies. I think it's difficult, and some of you in your own cities probably know it's tough right now. Recruiting, it's tough retaining, and sometimes you recruit and you send them through your academy, and then one of your cities takes them from us. So we have a tough time, but I will tell you the budget that we're going to approve on Monday will authorize 8 new academy classes. And that's something this sheriff has asked for because with the pandemic and everything, we sort of cut back on academy classes. And I think each academy class has around 50 slots in it. Now, do all 50 of those make it to the end? No. And even if they make it to the end, do some of them drop out at that point? Yes. But I think that's a good move that we're approving in our budget. One of the other concerns, if we stay in on public safety, is the challenges on Metro. And I know, I will say that Mayor Butts from Inglewood has been such a key member of Metro, particularly when it comes to public safety perspective, right? He's been in law enforcement. He was our chief of the airport police. He was the chief in Santa Monica. So, and where? And of course, and Inglewood. So he brings a really interesting perspective from law enforcement background. And he gives us a lot of advice about what we can and can't do on Metro. I've been really concerned lately, and I'm sure you all are as well. That it feels like, you know, we're hearing more and more instances of things happening on our Metro system, on our trains and our buses. But, you know, we have currently a multi-layered approach to security on Metro. We have contracts with LAPD. We have contracts with our sheriff's department, and we have contracts with Long Beach Police Department, as well as our own Metro private security. And as well as we just hired 300 people to wear green shirts, and they're considered our Metro ambassadors. And they're there to kind of be that gap or stand in the gap between sort of armed law enforcement response and the public who might just need some advice, some help, some understanding. And if they spot a situation that they think could escalate, we don't want them to step in, of course, they're unarmed. But they can certainly alert Metro operations. They can alert law enforcement that something is happening. So we think this multi-layered approach is good. But as you know, public safety means different things to different people. Some people feel safe when they see uniformed officer. Some people have the opposite feeling when they see somebody in uniform because of their experiences, their real life experiences. So Metro tries to kind of do both, but I've been frustrated. I think what we're doing isn't working perfectly well. You know, I had an incident in the Long Beach area where a woman was, you know, punched in the face. She seemed to try to call for help, was on 911, but again, that was Long Beach PD. But then by the time the train stopped, it was in the sheriff's jurisdiction, and it felt like nobody was talking to anyone. And I asked for a full accounting. Where was everybody when that happened? Where was Long Beach Police Department? Where was Metro Security? Where were the ambassadors? Where were the sheriffs? And how does this work for someone who finds themselves having an incident that they need help? So I've asked for a full accounting. We should get it. But I will tell you that today on Metro, just a few hours ago, the board began to move towards bringing law enforcement in-house and creating their own police department. I need a little more information before I think that's the right way to go. Because to set up your own police department is a whole other thing, as your Mayor, you know. And is this the right time to do that with the Olympics coming, the World Cup coming, to really set up a whole new police department? I'm not sure. The majority board is moving in that direction because I think they too are frustrated and want to make sure we have a say, because we can, and you all know about the money that we're all spending through our taxes, right? Measure M, Measure R, but we can build the best system anywhere, but if it's not safe, you know, people aren't going to ride it. And for the people that have the luxury of deciding whether or not they're going to ride it, that's one thing. But we have so many people in LA County who are transit dependent. They have to ride it. They have to ride it to go to work. They have to ride it to go to school. They have to ride it to go to a doctor's visit or to go to the hospital. So those are the ones I think about in my mind all the time, are the ones that really can't make a choice, like, I'm not going to ride it today because I don't feel safe. So that's a big issue for us. And then again, any suggestions or comments or insight that you might all have, I think our board would welcome your comments about transit safety. So on public safety, on the Hill, the Palos Verdes Peninsula, I've been hearing a lot of concerns about, seems like a little rash of, little crime wave going on up there. We've got some home burglaries, we've got some retail theft, some smash and grabs. So I decided to hold a public safety town hall and have the sheriff there himself to answer questions. Because I think that's important to have the person who's responsible for his deputies. And I know the community the communities on the Hill would like some answers about a lot of these crimes and how they're happening and how we can work together to stop them.
Can we get George Guts going at that meeting?
Probably not at this meeting, but
That's what we should be ad hoc into, really.
well, I think, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think on this one, though, I think what a lot of people are gonna wanna know is, at this point, I'm not talking about the DA, but how can we protect our homes? How can we make sure that, we can also catch these guys? Okay, so I can't prevent all gun violence from happening, but what I can do is work to get guns off the streets. Because I really believe that there are too many guns out there. And if we give people a safe, a convenient, easy way to turn in guns that they don't want, they'll do it. And so far, in the 7 gun buybacks that I've done, we've collected over 1,000 guns. And it's very simple. We advertise these gun buybacks. We work in partnership with a police department or the sheriff's department. And we offer people gift cards for different amounts for different guns, like $200 in a gift card for an assault weapon, $100 for pistols, $50 if it's not working. And we've actually gotten assault weapons, and we've gotten ghost guns. And the police, it's very organized, right? They don't ask questions. Everything is anonymous. And they really cooperate, because I'm sure they're sitting there going, boy, do I wish I could.
How do you know
ask
who
a
to
way-
give the gift card to?
Huh?
How do you know who to give the gift card to?
When they come in, they put the gun in their trunk, they drive in, they stay in their car, they pop their trunk, police take the gun out, determine what it is, and then we give them a gift
Oh,
card.
you don't talk to them?
We don't talk to them, and we give them either groceries or we used to give them Bed Bath and Beyond. But I think it's a good idea. And again, if you're interested, anyone, your community, we'd be happy to partner with you.
In Florence, we do it, and I think it's a great program, but the big question is. They're obviously not criminals coming in, dropping off the guns. These are just people that just want to clean up their house, they want to have a safer house. They do that. The big question is, how do we progress? I'm not saying that this is a bad program.
Yeah.
How do we progress to getting the guns out of the hands of actual criminals?
Right.
Versus people that just want to clean up their
Right.
garage.
Well, I actually think people cleaning up their garages keeps it out of the hands of criminals, because I bet you'll tell me that home robberies, sometimes the gun is taken
Absolutely.
by a criminal. So now you've got a gun in the hands of a criminal. And to be honest with you, sometimes around Mother's Day or Christmas, I'm pretty sure there's some people who would rather give their mother a gift than keep their gun. So it's not just law-abiding people that do it. We have all sorts of people who want to get rid of their guns. But you're right. But for instance, we had a woman at the last one, her husband passed away, and when she was cleaning out his stuff, 15 guns. She had no idea how to get rid of them. She didn't know where to take them. And, you know, she wasn't gonna have a garage sale, so when she heard about she said, thank you so much for this. I didn't know how to dispose of these guns. So again, it's a service that we're giving. My office usually pays for the gift cards. So if you all are anybody interested in doing this, we work with law enforcement. I pay for the gift cards and it gets some guns off the streets. So I know you guys want to talk about homelessness because that's been a priority for the Board of Supervisors and the county. And the newest things that I think are important that we're doing is Project Home Key. I don't know if you remember Project Room Key was during COVID when we were immediately buying motels and taking people off the streets, particularly the seniors who we didn't want to get sick during COVID, and we were moving them into motels. It was temporary. Project Home Key is we're transforming motels and hotels into little mini apartments. We'll add, you know, a kitchenette. And so it basically has everything it needs to be kind of a permanent supportive house for people. And the state of California under Governor Newsom is giving the county money, and then we buy the hotels and then we get a service provider to run them because there's always wraparound services at these hotels. And they really work out well. And this is a picture of First and Gaffney in San Pedro. This was the Grand Hotel, was there forever, was abandoned, nobody was using it. We have now brought in 60 veterans that were on our streets in the surrounding area. And because it can happen so quickly, we can get people off the streets. One of the Care Court is down there. Care Court's, this is too short of a meeting to explain Care Court, but this is again, the governor of California, as well as the legislature, passed a law that every county in California, all 58 of us, have to do Care Court. And it will start in my district in Norwalk, one courtroom, one judge. And this is what many people feel is the missing link. So many people say, I think these people have serious mental health challenges. They don't want to come inside. They're resistant to services. Family members know of a family member who they've tried everything and they cannot get them the help they need, so they end up on their streets. These are the people that are so close to being the ones that will die on our streets or will go to jail, which neither one of those are good outcomes. Care Court will have the ability for a family member, law enforcement, a friend to petition the court to say, this person can't take care of themselves. They're probably going to die in the streets. We're at our wits' end. We don't know what to do with them. The judge will then evaluate the case, and then the judge will sentence them to care, right? And that could be all sorts of things, substance abuse. It could be medication to help their psychosis. So it's, a lot of people feel like will take care of a population that's been very difficult to take care of. We'll see, first, it starts in December. No one's ever done it before. Will be a model and we'll see how it goes. But I already have family members coming up to me saying, when does it start? Because I have a son that I don't know what else to do with. I'm at my wits' ends. So we'll see if this is a compassionate, caring way to reach a population that so far has been out of our reach. Okay, so I don't know if you've heard of Inside Safe that the city of LA has been doing. Karen Bass has focused on homelessness, and Inside Safe is the idea that you just kind of descend on an encampment, one encampment at a time. And you descend on it and you have all your mental health workers, your social workers, your medical people, and then you move people in if they'll go like that night to a hotel. You already have set aside like 25, 30 rooms, and then you go and you just descend them. I went to one McCoy, I just went to, and I spent several hours there. Trying to convince people to come inside. And it's more difficult than you think. It's more difficult than you think. A lot of these people have been out there for years and they have a lot of stuff. And it's not as easy, but the county is also doing an inside safe. It's called Pathway Home. And we're gonna work with COGs all over the county to identify the most problematic encampments. Why target encampments? You know, because again, I know we see encampments, but we also see other people who are homeless. And I think, you know, the most comments I get from people are about encampments. You know, too close to a school, can't walk by, they're dangerous, they're under the freeway. And so I think a concerted effort to target's the wrong word, to address an encampment is a way that we can quickly move people inside if they're willing to go. And we want to work with you. If you can identify different encampments that you want us to help you with, we're going to do it. And again, everybody's in: social workers, medical workers, mental health workers. We're there to help people with any problem that they have, to get them inside and on a pathway to permanent supportive housing. And I think they'll be successful, but we all need to work together on that.
Supervisor, if I may add,
Yes,
I think it's a great idea going all at once to one encampment, because they'll have a friend that they relate to and say, well, if it's good enough for Billy, maybe it's good enough for me to accept help. So maybe.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is exactly right. These encampments are communities.
Our community.
And there was a lot of peer support that day. Like, if you go, I'll go.
Yeah.
And the idea is to move the whole community into a motel, because they don't want to be split up. They've become friends. They're kind of codependent. And I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah. Okay, the last thing, and I'm going to end, is just want to make sure you all know that we have a new county department called the County Department of Economic Opportunity, which is there to help you. And it comes in to play when there is like a serious, one of your companies decides to close down, and you've got 2,500 workers, 500 workers that are now about to lose their jobs. This department comes in and immediately works with the workers who are about to lose their job, gives them retraining, helps them, not be facing the worst day of their life. I had this situation in Vernon. Farmer John, used to be the hot dog of Joseph Dodger. They closed their factory. 2,500 workers were told, every man for himself, and they had nothing. And our Department of Economic Opportunity went in there and had a good jobs fair. They set up a fair, and we say good jobs fair because it wasn't just, we'll find you another job. We're going to find you a better job. We're going to train you so that you're going to have a better career than this meat packing plant. Many of them have now gone into the hospitality industry. USC hired a lot of it in their food service division at USC. They're deli counter employees. So some of their job skills actually translated to some better, higher paying jobs. So I just want to let you know that that department exists. So think about that in terms of your cities. If you ever have a situation where you have a major company that just decides to move out, and we know we're seeing a lot of that. But let's think about the workers, and we have the tools and the resources to help them possibly get a better job. Questions?
I have a question about this new department. Are they compensated during the training, or it's just while they're on unemployment?
That's a good question. Are they compensated during the training?
There is compensation available through the labor union that are involved.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Just a quick question and then a quick comment and question on the Metro piece.
Yeah.
my sense of it in terms of people's perception of public safety on the system is that there's safety in numbers. So getting ridership up will help people feel safer. And so I would just put that in the bucket of thoughts to work through in terms of how we can increase ridership. I'm not sure if fare holidays or fare reductions or anything like that. I know it's been talked about. Metro just adopted a new fare structure, but
Yeah, we're capping it.
that it seems to me is one of the things is getting ridership up so people feel safe. Excuse me. Second thing is it was reported earlier this week that I think UC San Francisco's Benioff Institute did a study of California's homeless population and found that
I saw that.
the top reason people became homeless was a reduction in income.
Yep.
And that for a good majority of them, a subsidy of as little as $300 a month to help them bridge through that reduction of income would have helped them stay housed. And so I was wondering if that's become a topic of conversation or might become a topic of conversation at the county.
Yes, for sure. And we actually have those resources because we feel like the number one priority is to keep people where they're housed, right? Like if they've got a house, we want to keep them in there. So preventing them from coming into the homeless stream is a huge priority. That's why I think mobile home parks should really be protected because that's kind of the last bastion of affordable housing. But we also have resources available to help people bridge that gap with their rent. So we do have those services. That's one of the pillars for our homelessness initiative in LA County is helping people stay where they are. The other thing about that study I found interesting was the age group. Like they were 55 and older were the majority of people.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't think that. You don't think that. You see people walking around, and yet you think it's seniors that have found themselves priced out of the rental market. Rents are too high too for people.
Right. And then just the last comment on that is the ease of access to that subsidy or the various programs, financial subsidies to the county that can help people bridge that reduction of income, stay housed, and then emerge on the other side with their income restored and able to stay in their house. And I was listening to one of the NPR stations the other day, and it was a Princeton professor talking about federal programs, really, but really in a society where on your phone and an app, you can order just about anything that you want. A lot of government programs, and he was really focusing on federal programs, are really difficult, force people to go somewhere, fill out a lengthy form that's often difficult for them. And these are folks that might not be comfortable doing that or experienced doing that type of thing. And so the friction in terms of the people who need those programs, need access to them and their ability to tap them is one of the things that should be considered.
Yes, good point. Good point. I think that's always true. It's funny, we had the opposite problem during COVID trying to schedule vaccinations. I had one person in my office, that's all they did was help seniors go online to schedule an appointment for a vaccination because technology was not their strong suit. So, but we need to pay attention to both populations. You're right, good point.
Just wanted to add that you all just voted on the consent calendar to add subsidy programs in the COG to help people using Medicaid dollars. So thank you for all that. You're welcome.
Good, thank you. And yes, Brett.
So like the Farmer John, when they closed down, through this, your economic department, do they help fund this training and program, or is it totally a county?
Well, they are part of the county, so, right, so yeah, we help fund this.
No, but I mean, so they don't, the county basically funds it, they don't participate in terms of.
Farmer John? Oh, yeah, no, they're gone. Yeah. no, They left town.
Take the money.
Yeah.
Take the money
Yeah.
away.
Farmer John. So that's why we step in, right? We're here to help.
One last question, the mayor.
I want to thank you for your participation, and your support for the helipod project. Rancho Palos Verdes, it's a great program, great project, and it'll help the peninsula immensely. But I was talking to one of the, I guess the executives from the company that actually created that
Yeah.
device, and he said that they're looking to put more,
Yeah.
in the peninsula particularly. And I don't know if your office is cooperating with them or
Yes.
anything that we can do to subsidize
Yes.
or contribute to it.
Yeah, great. I don't know how you followed that. It was kind of a great demonstration the other day up in Rancho Palos Verdes. There's a company that makes these heliopods that are on wheels, big giant, it's like a big giant tank that has thousands of gallons of water. And it allows the fire department in their firefighting helicopter to hover over this tank, drop a hose, suck up, 1,000 gallons of water, and then take off and drop it on the fire. Come back, the thing automatically refills because it's connected to, the water pipe. And it will save our firefighters hours of, landing, taking off, or going to other places. But you're right, this company, I guess we have 9 already in the county of Los Angeles. They want to put more. And with, dry season, fire season year round, it's really an innovative product. So again, that's something the COGS could think about looking to do. Cal Water gave the grant to buy this giant tank. Rancho Palos Verdes stepped up and gave the property so that we can put this, but it's quite fascinating. You should I'm sure the video is on YouTube or something. It's quite amazing the way it did it. Thank you, John.
Let's hear it for the supervisor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not only do we have one VIP guest tonight, but we have a second VIP guest. That's Gene Soroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles, which has experienced a series of historic record-breaking performances since his appointment in 2014. A respected global trade expert, Soroka has distinguished himself as a leader throughout his career in shipping, global logistics, and executive management. As Executive Director of the busiest container port in North America, Soroka is responsible for managing a $2 billion budget, advancing major capital projects, growing trade volume, and promoting innovative, sustainable practices that strengthen the region's economy. Prior to joining the port, Soroka held several positions both nationally and internationally in sales and management for American President Lines APL Limited. He holds an MBA and Bachelor of Science in Marketing from the University of New Orleans. Gene?
Thanks, John. Appreciate that nice introduction. Just one point of clarification. There is no way possible I am in the league of supervisor. But I am honored. I just had a couple slides, wanted to frame a little bit about who we are and what we do with the Port of Los Angeles, and then in closing, say thank you for all the work that this county has done for us in supporting the port's mission. So on the first page of the presentation, just a couple things to go through, some economic drivers, why we are important and why we should work together continuously, because in its most pure form, this port creates economic opportunity, jobs, and then we can do all kinds of great things once we have that basis there. Talk a little bit about what's been in the news for the past 3 or 4 years. It seems like everywhere from Main Street to Wall Street to Los Angeles, people know what supply chains are. You don't have your stuff. Started watching the news, you saw Lester Holt, you saw all the cable news programs, and supply chains suddenly become common talk at the dinner table when we used to just slide right under the radar. Talk about what that spotlight meant to us and how we try to capture the moment and make it for the benefit of the people we serve and the people we live here with. A little bit about leadership engagement, and then a look ahead as to what we see in this economy and what it's going to mean to all of us and all the people that we serve as well. Thank you. I think you're all familiar, but this, if it works the right way, it's a really cool animation. Yeah, kind of, sort of, keep going, keep going, keep going. That is the Port of Los Angeles with its neighboring Port of Long Beach. It is quite interesting because these two ports combined make up to about 40% of our nation's imports, about a third of our exports. The cargo that traverses the Port of Los Angeles, as you'll see on the next slide, really is the biggest piece of data that we have. Cargo that comes across the port docks, reaches each and every one of our nation's 435 congressional districts. So we truly are part of a national conversation on what it means economically, workforce, how we treat our workers, how we help attract, retain, and create those positions, and what we can do to raise people up, how we can train them and prepare them, not just, as the supervisor said, for jobs or good jobs, but careers. A couple other vital stats here. And coming off of last week's announcement where our employers group and our dock workers reached a tentative labor agreement, a collective bargaining agreement. It's interesting because Los Angeles is the largest customs district in the United States. Move about $430 billion worth of products across our docks. The longshore wage, the dock workers who move all that product, is about $1.5 billion. So for an investment of $1.5 billion, you move over $400 billion worth of goods. The industry could have doubled those good people's salaries and it wouldn't have even moved the needle. So they got a little bit of a move forward. They got paid for what they did during COVID. The dock workers averaged about 6 days a week on the job during that big surge of cargo coming in, when many of us were working from home or trying to protect our family's health and safety. Folks looked out for the American economy. We'll never forget that. In Southern California, the ports of LA and Long Beach are responsible for, if we do our jobs the right way, about 1 in 9 jobs. The city of Los Angeles, it's about 1 in 15. In the city of Long Beach, it's about every 1 of 8 jobs is related to the port. And nationwide, it's about 1 in 52. So again, same thing. You could start doing things if you have a couple dollars to spend on food, to put kids through college. If the port's doing okay financially, you can do all these outside things on zero emissions cargo, workforce training and development, and investment in our communities. We see all the ships and the containers and all the stuff that makes it on TV, but we also have 7 other lines of business. We work on perishable commodities, autos that come in from Asia that we push out to our dealerships. But I think one line of business that's very intriguing to us is the cruise business. Los Angeles is the largest drive market in the country. People can get their car in Riverside, drive down, have lunch, get on a vessel, and go down to Mexican Riviera for a 3-day cruise. Every cruise ship that calls the port of Los Angeles means about $1 million to the local economy within a 2-mile radius of the port. And it's even more if you go outside to the South Bay. These are passengers that get off and they go to our restaurants, our shops, stay in our hotels, either go home or go out on one of these cruises to Mexico or Hawaii. Here again, a little bit of a hidden gem, bit of a secret, but this really helps drive our local businesses. Next page, please. The supply chain was in the news for a number of reasons, but it dated back to the previous administration of Washington who tried to get tough on China and put in tariffs on those goods coming from China to try to decouple that relationship with a trading partner they no longer like. China, in return, put in place retaliatory tariffs, which really did nothing except hurt the American farmer and manufacturer. Still, those stay in place. The relationships are fairly icy, but in a little bit of a step forward, our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, had some very high-level meetings last week in China, including with President Xi. And both sides, I think, understand their economic importance, but to get to political, defense, and global importance, I think it was a good first step. So as we put in these tariffs and retaliatory tariffs and folks started looking at the supply chains differently, we had fits and starts. By the end of 2019, we had brought in all the cargo we could to fill our warehouses until the next tariff milestones were going in. Then COVID-19 hit in the beginning of 2020. Our business at the Port of Los Angeles had dropped 16% when those tariff milestones came in, and then another 19% as COVID-19 shuttered the factory setting in China as well as our American lifestyle. So we went for a period of about 8 months without really importing or exporting the number of shipments, the amount of goods that we normally would. And then as we were trying to figure out how to manage our own lives, businesses and families, we figured out how to buy more online. Curbside pickup became natural. Family outing was Costco on the weekends just to pick up those bags and run home. And we kept buying and buying more so than ever before. We were no longer getting on airplanes, going to ball games or movies, and we weren't visiting our restaurants of choice for obvious reasons that we all now know. And all that buying took off. We started buying more product in Asia and bringing it through here. Some of you who followed us may remember at one point we had 109 ships sitting outside the port. So many people were trying to figure out how we could do this better. But the American consumer's purchasing power really kept us going as an American economy throughout COVID when so many other businesses were struggling mightily. We keep going forward through this. We kind of leveled off. We figured out a way to clear up those ships. We learned a lot. We stubbed our toe on a few occasions. But the supply chain really has set itself in a better direction. And from the federal government and the current administration to the state government under Governor Newsom, to our counties, our cities, and municipalities, it's my view that we all rally together to try to fix, from a government perspective, private sector problem. And it was the government that really had the impetus to help push those private sector partners in a direction of recovery that we hadn't witnessed before. It was a tremendous job by all. We're still struggling a little bit on the export side. There's hope there, but we're leveling off because there still is a tremendous amount of inventory in the United States. If you're like me, you're still getting texts and emails every day from your favorite retailer, 50, 60, 75% discounts, because they're trying to get that old product out that they had purchased during COVID because we were buying so much. So our imports are down a little bit. Exports still have a geopolitical issue, and our warehouses are relatively full. That will start to come back to normal probably in the latter half. Next one. This is what the port looked like in about October of 2021. Ripped from every headline. There was no shortage of advice on how we could fix this. But there were a lot of good people working together very closely in trying to find better ways to do business, better ways to help the consumer and the American company who relies so much on international trade. Next, please. We went on offense. I used to travel about 400,000 miles a year because most of our customers are headquartered in Asia and Europe. I would also spend a lot of time with American companies across the country trying to sell the benefits of our port and the jobs creation aspect that I mentioned is so important to us here. We were on all the major networks, all the business news shows, trying to tell the ground truth of what was happening at the port. While folks were thinking people were on strike, vessels were sitting for months on end, the ports were closed, we didn't have enough workers or truck drivers. Our job was to get out there and talk more about reality and help create solutions by convening people. We're at the confluence of all these activities, from community to government to railroads and truckers and shippers, and it was our job, maybe outsized, to bring people together. Next, please. We turned our office into a literal television studio. A couple of the young folks that worked with us went to film school. A couple others just took a liking to all this work in media. And we went on Amazon and started buying lighting and teleprompters and cameras because we felt we had to get out there. Now, you and I have both seen the expert witness that's on CNN that's giving an interview from their home at their desk on their laptop. The laptop is pointed up to the ceiling and you're looking straight up this guy's chin. You know he didn't shave that day, and it just doesn't look professional. We wanted to make sure that if we were going to speak on behalf of an industry, we were going to look studio ready. And it's not that anybody was going to be a movie star, but it was about the presentation and make sure that we were believable, we were understandable, and we could earn the trust of the people we had to serve. It was trial by fire. Again, failing forward was something that happened every day, but we put everything into this. While many were working from home, at the port, we had police officers, construction workers, engineers, designers. Those are folks that can't work from home. We also had a core group, our management team, about 25 of us that went to work every day to try to set that example because we felt we had essential city services to deliver. Then we engaged with leadership, whether it be at the highest levels of government, in industry, and bringing people together who could fix problems with us. Not folks that would point fingers, but in the toy sector, agriculture. Dee Dee Myers, who was the first press secretary in the White House under the Clinton administration in 1992. It just happened to be a female. And now she is effectively our Secretary of State in California. A great friend, a great brand ambassador, but most of all, a tremendous communicator. So leaning on people who were experts in different areas, who knew that we could shoulder the blame with when it came time, but more importantly, shoulder the responsibility with. It was Dee Dee that I took a lot of power from during that time. Next. And it was about bringing leadership to the port as well. You may recognize the guy in the middle. I can tell you stories about the 2 meetings I had with him, and these weren't photo opportunities. The president actually wanted to be a part of the solution. And if we go back in history, just after he was sworn into office, he signed an executive order on supply chain. He created a supply chain disruption task force with 3 cabinet members, named a port envoy for the first time in our country's history, put together global meetings, at that time still via Zoom, led by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, to bring communities together and to break down communication barriers. As we went forward, we then got the bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm a little biased, but I think the president did a tremendous job for an industry that wasn't necessarily well known in the public domain. And then you see a couple other famous people that kept descending on the port, again, to try to build community and collaboration, break down those barriers. Thanks. For us, it was all about trying to drive technology, digital technology that's out there in the open and simply just aggregate it. Our industry is known for very siloed, old school approaches. We don't necessarily move in an innovative way on all times. I've been around a lot. I worked in Asia for 11 years. I've been at the port now for about 9, and I can still attest to you that it takes a lot to bring people together, especially when it means sharing information. Back about 7 years ago, the Port of Los Angeles co-created with General Electric the nation's first port community sharing of information system. All it means is we're trying to give our port partners a little bit of a broader view of what's going on. If we had 100 ships at anchor, what does it mean for me if I'm a small importer? If I need to get my cargo and I can't see it, can the port help me see it better so my company and my firm can make decisions? All we're trying to do is get up there and swing. Doing nothing was not an answer, especially during COVID. So we tried everything from communication, diplomacy, collaboration, and digitalization. What we found in our computer system through data mining was that if your cargo sat for 9 days at the Port of Los Angeles at the peak of peaks, it would likely sit for weeks on end. Folks who needed their cargo, think of holiday season goods, ventilators and IV apparatus that were going to hospitals as we were battling the Delta variant, or other products that needed to get to manufacturers. They were getting all gummed up by those cargoes that were sitting for weeks on end. We then found that some of our largest retailers had very rich storage agreements. In fact, the largest American retailer could hold their containers at the Port of LA for 40 days without charge. And we were not consulted. So once we figured out these contracts are confidential, we wouldn't normally know. But once we found out that that was taking place, there was no public shaming, there was no threats or anything to that notion. We just simply moved that cargo aside. Then the products that had to get to market were loosened up, and suddenly we started seeing a depletion of the old cargo, and the end result was the best retail sales year in the history of our nation, and an 8.5% holiday season growth that was the best on record at that time. We got products to market of all varieties, and it was done through just better information. Next. The outlook for what we see here at the port. The economy's choppy. It's an economy and an equation that we've really never seen before. We're very concerned when we go to the pump or the grocery store about the prices and inflation. Although that inflation has now come down 11 consecutive months, it's still higher than we would like. It's $4.59 at Costco this morning to fill up. That's tough on families. We're also seeing that concern leads over into the housing market. Housing sales of pre-existing homes last month was down 20%. Typically, families who may be moving, wanting to put kids into their next schools, will do it about this time of year. Still the concern about, hey, do I have enough savings because of the economic outlook? On the other side, we've got 10 million jobs open in the nation, the lowest unemployment since the 1960s. And the ability really to keep driving on the consumer side with retail sales being more resilient than even experts could have imagined. So economically, while we're teetering a little bit over here and there, families are feeling the pinch in real time. I honestly don't think as a leading indicator of the US economy that we're going to get into a point of recession in any time soon. If in fact, folks still want to debate that, we had a recession in the first 2 quarters last year by textbook definition, 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. We did that, we passed it, it was kind of a bouncy landing, but nothing deep or protracted. Yet we're not taking anything for granted. On the digitalization side, I talked about what it means to share information in a big industrial setting to help make it better for importers and exporters. You have to protect that data. Port of Los Angeles was the first in the nation to create a cybersecurity center at its complex back in 2014. Today, that cybersecurity center is stopping 40 million cyber intrusion attempts a month, and that's double what it was before COVID. The bad guys see people working from home, no VPNs in place, vulnerabilities. I'm now getting texts almost every day. Your Wells Fargo account is overdrawn. I don't bank with Wells Fargo. Others are saying, hey, your UPS is tracking, but it's going to be there tomorrow instead of today. Please click here. I didn't order anything on UPS. So we've got to be diligent as consumers. We also have to be diligent as leaders in business and government to protect this data. It's moving faster than ever, but the bad guys are trying to keep up more so than ever before. We also created the first cyber resilience center. So think about the success we had with this cyber ops center. We've now used our capabilities to bring in the private sector. We have 24 private sector companies and the dock workers that have joined us. Co-created by IBM, the Cyber Resilience Center opened up in December. And as of today, we have stopped 12 cyber threats to private sector partners that they didn't know were coming. It's meant to be an early warning system. And if something bad does happen, IBM and us synthesize the information so we could see, is it red, yellow, green? Where are the codes coming from? Who are the actor states? What's the IP address? And we share that back out with the other partners so they can put up and fortify their walls of protection. It's early days. We're the only people doing it, but I like the approach we've taken because we've already seen some early success. We talked about the labor agreement. I think we're in good shape. There's going to be a voting or ratification process over the summer months. The union leadership and others feel confident that we'll get through it. It was bumpy, it was tough, but it was necessary, I think, as an industry person. Our workers had to get paid, they had to get rewarded, and in light of robotics and automation at ports, these guys need to have job protections. And they may need to be upskilled or reskilled. If you're of my vintage, you're gonna have to learn how to do some things different than we did before, and that's okay. So at the Port of Los Angeles, along with our neighbor in Long Beach, we're building the nation's first goods movement training campus. Thanks to Governor Newsom and a $110 million investment, the Port of LA has put up an additional 40 acres of its own and $40 million to get this project off the ground. And the idea is that it's meant for everybody. And the primary reason I'm here tonight, whether it's the kid that's riding their bike to Banning High School every day and wants to be a part of that port, or someone that doesn't know where their career is going to take them after high school. Should they go to work, community college, 4-year school, or should they try to get some training and skills now that could be the backbone of how they pay their way through school? For the dock workers, it's about protecting them against automation and giving them new and upsized skills. For other unions to augment their already great training programs with a little more specificity around port work, we are now here for you. I don't know what I don't know. So we need big thinkers around us. We're going to have to create a nonprofit, syllabus, schemes of training and things. I'm a good port guy. I'm a pretty good shipping guy, but I'm not necessarily a trainer. So I need to get folks around us. LAUSD has been very good. The Los Angeles Community College District is interested, and a number of others. So it's a start of a conversation where I think we can really make a difference. And again, as pure as it is, for every 5 of those containers we move, we create 1 job. Now, if every port in the nation could say that, that's great. Pascagoula, Charleston, Savannah. but we move 10 million containers today. Think if we could move 11 million, 12 million and beyond, how many more jobs we could create? And here again, if we want to be the cleanest in the world, that's our DNA here in California, and especially in Southern California. If we want to build this training campus to be the best in the business, and if we want to continue to invest in our local communities, we got to move more cargo. That creates more jobs and more economic prosperity, lift people out of poverty, give people opportunity. So that's it. You don't see that around the nation and other ports. You don't see other ports with the same look that we have. It's a little bit different here at the Port of LA. And I think we got one or two. So on the capital project side, I can geek out on this stuff all night long, but we're coming down to the end of my allotted time. Message here is, we've got a lot of infrastructure projects. We're a jobs multiplier. We need somebody to bring cargo in. We need somebody to work that cargo. Then the next somebody is to design this port so we could bring even more in, or more the right way, or more cruise business. Then somebody's got to build that out. Then somebody can come in and work after them. So that's the jobs multiplier effect. Never before have we seen money like we do today, generational money from the Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, the California budget, and our $1.7 billion that we have designated over the next 10 years, all to build, creating more opportunity. On the last page, there were two things of thanks today. One, this COG has helped us tremendously in two areas. Building new on and off ramps of State Road 47, which connects us to the iconic Vincent Thomas Bridge, bringing a lot of cargo back and forth between LA and Long Beach and out to our consumption areas as well as our manufacturing communities. And then second, part of our commitment to the local communities, a pedestrian bridge in Wilmington that's part of a beautification project, about $50 million of port money to help raise up the Wilmington community. A community where only 4% of our 85 million friends have gone to four-year school, but a community that is adjacent to the port that wants jobs and opportunity because of what this economic engines bring. And the thanks tonight is to David Legere for all his work in helping us and the recently retired Steve Lance. So it's friendships like these, and because of the COG, that those are just two really big examples of how this COG really helps us and how I hope we can help the COG in its membership. So that was a real fast look at the port. Any questions or comments? If you guys have time around your agenda, I'm happy to. If not, it's just a privilege to be here.
Please.
So I just wanted to say, I've had a wide variety of opportunities to work with the board and how much I appreciate your staff. So particularly that I got to know a lot of the folks when I was doing a lecture series with Cal State Dominguez Hills with the Chinese government. And so we brought a whole bunch of groups in talking about goods movement, talking about port security, talking about air quality, which if people don't realize how much the air has improved from and around the ports, it's really pretty amazing.
We've reduced diesel particulate matter pollution by 90% since 2006. You got 10% more to go, and that's a big deal.
Right.
But I appreciate your recognition.
But the fact is that you're actively working toward that last 10%. So
Yes.
anyway, just wanted to tell you, take that back to your staff, that they are making you look good every day, and some really nice GIS stuff they were including in there too. So got a shout out to your GIS staff. But you know, when we have needed when we've needed things, when we've had issues, we have a lot of our residents in Lomita working the ports. You know, we've always gotten the help that we needed. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I've read that because of the backlog of 2 years ago and because of the uncertainties that will recently conclude labor negotiations, that some shippers have been looking at other ports. I'm wondering to what extent that has had an impact and what you're doing to win back some of those shippers.
Yeah. Two numbers that are really important. During this last negotiation, we've lost about 15% of our cargo to East and Gulf Coast ports because importers and exporters were very concerned that there would be some type of job action that further snarled cargo. We went 13 months during this collective bargaining time period, and we had probably 3 bad days. But folks were really jumpy because all they saw during the last 3 and 4 years of cargo being backed up here during COVID. This trend is a lot longer though. Over the last 20 years, the ports of LA and Long Beach have lost 20% of their market share to other ports as they've hired really switched on leaders. They've aligned with policymakers and they've gotten investments in infrastructure. Think of Panama Canal, third lock, bringing bigger ships to the eastern Gulf Coast. They've been out there really going. Now, it's a little different when you're in a state of 1.2 million, you got 2 US senators and you got real close alignment. We're the fourth largest economy with 2 US senators and 40 million constituents. We've been working hard on this. The best way I can describe it is we have to continue to unify around what's best for us. Creating jobs is good. Making sure that we're a leader in environmental training and investment is also good. But we have to have a more concerted effort. And I'll be very interested in hearing your opinions down the line as to how we can do that better. Going to Washington looking for money. Money so far from the Infrastructure Act has gone to red and battleground states. But that's been the case for a long time too. How do we get our applications to the head of the class? How do we look like a unified series of governmental agencies with our private sector partners? That's the biggest thing. The other piece to this is that in all candor, the heavy arm of the regulatory bodies here in California are a deterrent to some who don't understand. Not asking that we roll anything back, but there's got to be a bit of a balance between what we want to get done environmentally and what we need to do to continue to grow our commerce and jobs. And that's a tightrope act that I don't think we found the formula to just yet. But I'd be very interested in having further conversation. I'm going to be out there now that we've had this tentative agreement in place. I've been in Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was in Tacoma with farmers at a big conference. And I was in Indianapolis earlier this week with other supply chain people. I will be on a whistle-stop tour, crisscrossing the country with Asia trips to combine, trying to give people confidence that our port is ready for action. We've got available capacity and we've got the willingness to work with business. But I know it's a delicate balance across the board, and I'm not going to hide from that. Yet we just got to find those sweet spots to make sure that everyone feels like we're an inclusive port. And that's going to be the hard work ahead. But I like the challenge and we'll let this. Thanks.
One more question from Mayor Wilson.
Yeah, Pat.
Gene, I want to echo the comments about your staff, about how great they are to work with. And Mike DiBernardo stands out, in my opinion. I have great respect for him. In speaking of improving the air quality, we now operate 7 battery electric trucks at my business. So we're part of the solution. One of our tenants there has, I think, 6 or 7 other chargers on our site. And, you know, I've been trying to promote the opportunity or the fact that we have that opportunity for others. I'd like to be a public charging station. I haven't got any traction with some of the big charging electric companies. They're looking for the bigger, the 500 fleet trucks rather than the smaller combination of trucks that could benefit from this opportunity. But I just like you to take that back to your staff that we're there. We have the opportunity to provide charging, and we'd like to partner with somebody and provide that service.
Great. If I can have 30 seconds more on that. We've got 2 big goals. By 2030, we want all of that cargo handling equipment at the port to be zero emission. By 2035, the 20,000 heavy duty trucks need to be zero emissions. We're going to let the private sector decide, is it going to be battery electric, hydrogen, other forms, methane, et cetera, or is it going to be a combination of this? But the infrastructure is key. One of the easiest ways to look at this is ask, how many gas stations do you see at the port today? None, because we want it to be a transit facility. So let's take a regional map and overlay it with where the trucks get their diesel gas today and see if we can begin to invest in infrastructure, hydrogen, electric, however the experts will see fit, along those natural truck routes. And at the truck depots where the truckers themselves leave their rigs overnight so they get fuel or charge up. The answer is not in real public or state-owned land areas. It's not on port property, but it's around where these truckers find the access and availability based on their normal day-to-day work. And hopefully that stops us from, again, wasteless runs of trucks that create more pollution, trying to be as succinct as possible. But we need real life opportunities and examples like you're providing, Adam. Our ideas go so far, but we need the business community to engage, and you'll be a prime example. Thank you. Awesome. I have to let you get on to your regular business, but what a privilege.
Let's hear it for the executive. Agreed. Next item.
Next item, the city of Rolling Hills dues.
Okay, before we get into the next item, so this is primarily a board item. So those of you that aren't on the board, there's lots of food. Feel free to stand up while we're talking about this and grab some food or coffee. Don't be shy about that because I think is there quite a bit over there? Yeah, there's quite a bit of food. So if you haven't eaten yet, please grab a plate for yourself while we're going through board business right now. Okay.
This came from Mr. Stern.
So the first item today is regards to the City of Rolling Hills dues proposal. And with that, we're going to have Mayor Wilson introduce that.
Thank you, John. So in your packet is an item from our city manager who summarized the current situation we're in right now. This has come before you before. It came before you 2 months ago when I wasn't here. It didn't make the agenda last month when I was here. But this is our last chance to remain a member of the COG. And what I'm asking for is, well, let me give you some background first. The COG is very important to Rolling Hills, but it's important in different ways than it is to most cities represented here. And everybody benefits from the COG in different ways. But Rolling Hills, because as some of you know, is a small, low population, 100% residential community, private roads. We don't have any transit. We're not able to benefit from a lot of the programs that the COG puts out. Having said that, I recognize, and our residents recognize, that we do benefit from what the COG does outside our city limits. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we're not the beneficiaries of what the COG does and the programs that it offers, but there are some limitations. For example, we have no homeless population. So whatever the COG does to promote the housing of homeless, it doesn't apply to us directly. Of course, it applies to us indirectly because it applies to everybody. So I mentioned that we have no transit. We don't, not even the Palos Verdes Peninsula Transit doesn't provide service to our city. We're just, we talked about this before. That's something that may be on the in the future, but it's not now. We just don't have transit. So having said this, the major reason we're asking for, and I don't want this to come across as special treatment because it's not. What I'm asking for is equity, and that equity has to do with how we're charged or how the charges for our city are proposed by the COG. And we've asked, there was probably an unreasonable request a couple of meetings ago for a dues of $1,000. That came as a result of our city council. One person said, well, we should limit it to $1,000 and no more. That motion passed. I wasn't in favor of it, but it passed. I know that our prior representative B. Derringer came and upped it to, I think, $2,500 2 meetings ago. And as a matter of fact, there was a vote on that, and the vote was very close. It was 7-6. I wasn't here for that. I couldn't vote, in favor of my own city, but there was, I think there was within the council, there was some consideration for reducing or charging us at a lower level. What I'm asking for now is a dues of $3,500 plus the $1,000 for the assessment. And that would still result in a savings for our city of a couple of $1,000s. But the reason for that, like I said, the equity part of it, at the current rate being proposed, we would be paying $4.42 per person, per population member. The next closest to that is our next door city, Rolling Hills Estates, that pays $1.39. So there's a huge disparity between what our tiny city with limited benefits from the COG would be paying relative to the cost. So that was what I'm asking for. I'm new to the COG. I only started, I think in January. I missed one meeting, and I think you guys are doing great work. I'd like to be able to participate and continue with the COG, but our city council, because of our budget of just over $2 million, is looking at every dollar, and they're asking for consideration. So thank you.
Very good. Jackie would like to speak, and then we'll have questions.
Yeah, I have to strenuously object, and I have to explain why, and I'm doing that on behalf of myself and the entire staff. The city of Rolling Hills is first of all, every city pays the dues based on a formula. That formula has been in effect for 23 years, since the year 2000. And we have discussed this at least 3 times. And each time we've said that the dues formula should be based on what it's based on. We don't do it on population. We do it on a factor that has been working for 23 years that was actually proposed by the city managers. Secondly, the proposal is from the mayor. It's not from the city council. The last city council vote was to pay $1,000. And I understand that there, I have to say that very important to me, since I don't want any city to lead the cog, is I listened to the deliberations of the Rolling Hills Council. And I think Mayor Wilson, you voted for that motion. And so that this new proposal is coming from, with the hope that the council will change its mind, but it's not coming from the council. When I listened to the council deliberations, I was upset because the value of the cog was never discussed. None of the conversation had to do with what we do for the city of Rolling Hills. And that is on the tape. They don't want to pay the amount we're asking for. I'd like all of you to raise your hand if you want to pay the bills that you get and if you wouldn't want them reduced. The city's proposal is to pay $3,500 for dues and $1,000 for the assessment. These numbers are based on an equity formula that the city has decided is what everybody should use, but we're not all using that. Let's start with the dues. In the year 2000, we decided as an organization, and the city managers unanimously decided this, that it costs money to have an organization and that the minimum cost would be $3,500. So I went to the Department of Labor Statistics, and $3,500 in year 2000 is $6,200 today. Our costs have gone up, your costs have gone up, and today it's $6,200. While all of your city dues are going up, are you willing to say that the city of Rolling Hills dues should not go up? What does the invoice that we sent to the city of Rolling Hills actually ask them to pay? It asked them to pay $68.17. That means they're paying $617 above inflation for all of the programs we're doing today, which exceed anything we ever did in the year 2000. And the assessment, I have to say, paying $1,000 is really ridiculous. We are invoicing $2,000 and the city is suggesting they pay $1,000. This year alone, they participated in a study for the accessory dwelling units, which would have cost them at least $12,000 to $15,000 if they had done it by themselves. They have requested special services from our regional planner, who has written memos on their code enforcement options and other information that he has provided for them. And that has saved their limited staff a lot of money that they could not have paid for otherwise. The value of the regional planner far exceeds $2,000, which, by the way, is $167 a month. And I would challenge them to find services that we have provided for that price. Next, I want to draw your attention to pages 112 and 113 in the agenda packet, which show the easily quantifiable benefits the city has gotten from the COG over the years, in which they are apparently placing more value on. These services will not be available to them without their staffing up. So I want to just review them. In energy efficiency, we provided City Hall lighting in 2014, which saved the city $2,445 annually, besides incentive money and service value of over $10,000. In 2019, we provided LED lighting to their tennis courts, $7,402 annual savings. Southern California Energy Leadership Partnership. We helped the city achieve the gold level, which is energy efficiency, which is annual savings. We provided a climate action plan, community green gas emissions inventories, which we're still doing today, so that they understand where they are with the climate action plan. These are not things that they would be able to do without us. 29 residents of Rolling Hills, 29 rain barrels went to 15 residents of Rolling Hills, which is proportionate to all the rest of the cities. The residents are eligible to participate in all of our workshops and everything else. I already mentioned the regional planner, who has done several special projects for the city already. The fiber network. We hooked up the city of Rolling Hills with 1 gigabit of fiber service, which they never would have been able to afford if they had tried to go into the public sector, private sector and do that. And they are getting that service every single month by being part of the South Bay Fiber Network. Excuse me. And they've also asked for additional sites. Indirect benefits is all of the work we're doing on local control, the transportation issues that we work on, and the other pieces of legislation. as well as the regional projects. The city should, so let me go back to leave those pages and say that additionally, if the board decides to accept the mayor's proposal, when another dues adjustment is made in the future, do we just say the city of Rolling Hills should pay what they want to pay, since the amount in their proposal is not really based on the formula? Will all of the cities accept their dues going up and Rolling Hills staying the same? And finally, the strength of a regional organization such as the COG is when we do things together and all cities benefit. Obviously, when we do the roads, Rolling Hills benefits. When we provide homeless, the reason there's nobody in Rolling Hills is we are addressing homelessness, and therefore Rolling Hills is benefiting from our work in the homeless area. When we set up an award-winning fiber network and connect their city hall, Rolling Hills benefits. When we provide energy efficiency and water conservation services, their city facilities and the residents benefit. And when we advocate for local control, Rolling Hills benefits. These services could not have been done themselves without spending much more money. As I said at the beginning, this issue has been discussed at least 3 times. I urge you to stick with the dues formula and assessment for all cities. Otherwise, you can't justify the dues for any city.
Hey, can I respond?
Of course.
So in my comments, I clearly said that we benefit from the COG, and every city here benefits from the COG. So the list that Jackie went through, every city has benefited from some type of program or policy of the COG. I clearly said that we benefited from that too. My main point was the size of our city, which is less than 1/4 the size of the next smallest city, which is Rolling Hills Estates, is paying more than double, triple even, of what the lowest population city is paying. So yes, we benefit from it. We want our dues to reflect the size of our population. I didn't hear Jackie say how the dues are calculated. I think it's a somewhat complicated process, but if you break it down to something simple like population, and you, I don't know if this table is in your report that I have, but anyway, most cities pay somewhere between 50 cents to a little over $1, 36 cents to $1. We're paying $4.42. That is my main issue. And with the reduction in the amount that I'm asking for, it would be $2.34, which is still almost double what Rolling Hills Estates is paying per person.
Questions? Bernadette?
So I guess my question is, if Rolling Hills leaves, how do we bridge the gap with that amount that's not being paid? Do all our dues get increased or?
No. First of all, Rolling Hill, the way the bylaws work, the city, any city, I guess, would stay a member until they didn't pay their dues. And they have, was it 2 to 3 months, right? 90 days to pay their dues. So at the end of 90 days, they would just not have paid their dues. Budget will not go up. The cities will not, we'll just take that as a loss in the budget.
Other questions? Really?
It's not much of a question. With all due respect, Jackie, calling your request ridiculous, I think is, I don't think it's a great way to negotiate this. After all, the city of Rolling Hills does have the option to pull out, so that you would be collecting zero at that point. I think the concern Mr. Wilson has is legitimate. The size of the city is minute. Yes, we all benefit from the COG. I'll be honest with you, the conversation behind closed doors even in the city of Torrance was to possibly pull out of the COG until recently when we started working with the homeless program. But prior to that, a few of us found very little use of the COG. Again, we're very happy now. I think there's a lot of programs that were put together, but we have to be careful how the COG treats individual cities and the choice of words that are used, because after all, Rolling Hills is the one writing the check to the COG, not the other way around. I know there's expenses that are involved with running the COG, but again, Rolling Hills is, in this particular case, the customer, the client. So I would support the COG revisiting the fee structure to better reflect cities like Rolling Hills that have really a small population. And overall, I think it's a legitimate concern. That's all I'm saying. It's a legitimate concern that's being brought to the table. I think Mr. Wilson was being very respectful towards the board and towards the president. So I would hope that he could get the same respect back and that we would consider.
If I could just respond to that, we had a finance committee. Finance committee did review this, so it actually has been more than 3 times we've discussed it. And so we have this year, we actually did discuss this new formula. It came back the way it is. And I'm sorry to hear about Torrance, since we just put $30 million into your transit center.
I understand, but keep in mind, it's all coming from one pool of money, which is the taxpayers. The COG is basically a vehicle to move money around, but and again, I have no problem with the COG. I actually voted to renew the $55,000 that we pay. But when in comparison to a city that has a transit, a lot of public streets, a lot of public programs, and 147,000 people, and we pay 55,000, then Rolling Hills, I think, has a legitimate concern.
Just one last thing I'll say is day to day, the city staff in Rolling Hills gets more benefits than the city staff in larger cities, because they have one planner, they have very, very little staff, and we can fill in a lot of gaps for the city of Rolling Hills.
And I get that, but we're a $500 million a year budget. They're a $2 million a year budget. I think it's a legitimate request.
And for the next question, I just want to clarify. So yes, we did have a finance committee. There were 3 options given to us in regards to inflation and cost of living. And there was one that we chose. After that time, Rolling Hills then had your vote where they came back with $1,000. Of course, that was a non-starter for probably most of us. But I know, having attended Rolling Hills meetings, that they do want to participate in the COG. Pat does have a difficult time relaying the value of the COG to them, but I think he understands the value. And so what the finance committee voted on and put forward, and then what was counter proposed, were 2 different things. So it's almost apples and oranges. What we talked about now, and the reason I wanted Pat to come back tonight was that they've agreed to put more in. They understand that there is a value. I think we all understand that having all 16 cities together as one is the most important thing of everything. Like, to me, that's the most important thing. And I know it is to probably most of you. So the ad hoc committee did not make this recommendation. As it was said, the staff made this recommendation tonight. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that. Questions? Yes.
So, last month, Brett, didn't you bring the same thing up?
Yeah. No, Brett, it was C.
It was B. It was B.
In May.
It was B.
Yeah.
In May.
She was the rep before.
Okay. Oh, so it was the same place.
The same
low place, yeah.
And thank you for making that
Well,
motion 2 months ago.
I supported her, I support you now. You know, I gotta tell you something. The world isn't fair. And I can tell you that coming from a city 12 years ago, we really could have used a break in the dues. We just didn't have it. We were gonna be bankrupt in 9 months when you've taken office. And, we really couldn't afford the dues. And if we had asked, we would really appreciate the consideration. And we're not saying that's the situation in Rolling Hills, but I just, as was said, the big power that we have is that we're all here. And I just don't see where it's gonna break us to have consideration that there's such a small population city. I said that last month, I'll say it this month.
Thank you. Oh, hold on. Debbie, go ahead.
I hope people can hear me. It's a new setup for me. Can everybody hear me? Okay. We're all friends. Patrick is my neighbor and friend. Rolling Hills is my neighbor and friend. My understanding is that the dues hadn't been changed or raised until recently for a long time. The mayor's proposal is for 23-24. What happens after that? What are you expecting to pay after that?
I think we have to get past this hurdle before I can comment on that. That really wasn't part of my consideration. I would expect to pay more as prices increase, at least the cost of living increase, but that's not how the due structure is calculated here.
Yeah, but are we going to go through this again next year?
I don't expect so, no.
Okay,
Thank you.
very understanding. Very,
So I think, Pat, I appreciate your being here. I appreciate what you've put forth. I do think that Rolling Hills is a different animal in the sense that with like 5 employees, and having worked for a larger city and now being mayor of a smaller city of Lomita with 21,000 people, with a staff of 41, I think we have now. We rely on the COG more, and I know that Rolling Hills has to rely on the COG much more because you only have 5 people, and no matter what sort of saints they are, they can only do so much. Having said that, I'm very sympathetic to your position of being the guy trying to find scratch one more vote out of your council to have something. And I would support doing a reduced dues for a year. And during that time, and God only knows for next year, but that would give you time to show the value to your colleagues and just have a better understanding of then how we could move forward. So, I would support that for a year because it's a weird circumstance and politics is the art of the possible. And if that's what we can do, then that's what we can do.
So was I next? Sorry,
No,
did
no,
I get it?
go ahead.
Gotta get ready. Okay. So, and I think I made this point at the May meeting too, so we're all sort of repeating, but I think that you're talking, and I had asked at the May meeting, so well, what is the formula? And I think we still don't have the formula, and I think, oh, he left, or you said that, but and what you referenced on the finance committee from a few months ago, I think was more of a staff methodology, 3 choices of methodology for how to raise dues, using different inflation scenarios, but not necessarily revisiting the underlying formula. So I think you have a chance. So I think, and Jackie, I think made this point, which I think was a valid point, is that there is some base level of money that everybody needs to contribute because there's a basic minimum amount you need to operate, right? But it's very difficult if you're a city with not very many people because it's hard to spread it around. But I would support, I say we give, I'll pick a number, but this year, 1 year, 50% reduction on your dues for this year. And in that time frame, I asked for it in May and I'm going to ask for it again. I think we need to revisit the formula, make sure it's fair. And I think you kind of said the same. We'll revisit the formula. If we still think the formula is fair, then next year, it might be a different story. But I do think we need to revisit that formula. And I brought up last time that when you did the assessment for the planner, there was 3 tiers and the tiers were largely based on population. So I think in my mind, it's got to be some base level of membership fee plus the tier of population. I'm guessing if I had to get, no, please don't rebut. I understand. I just want to tell you
We're
what
the board and you can't rebut. Jackie, you rebutted for Aurelio and that wasn't really nice.
formula, I can tell you what the formula is.
Okay.
I'd like to know. It's 50% population and 50% general fund. And that formula came from the city managers because there are cities like El Segundo that have a very small population and a very large general fund. So that's what they felt was the most fair way of.
Great. And you mentioned that was in the year 2000 and we're 23 years later. So let's revisit. And if you want to bring the city managers back, Jackie, it's not unreasonable.
We've had 3
we're the
finance.
customer. You work for us, not the other way around. And so if we're saying that it's been, the group would have to agree, but it's been 23 years. It's not unreasonable to say, let's revisit. Absolutely. I'm sorry.
5 consecutive years I've been on the COG, okay? 3 times we've had committees to talk about the fee structure, 3 times.
Okay.
Every time we've had the discussion, the consensus, if not the absolute full body has said, you don't need to change the structure. It's
Okay.
working. So there's
Okay.
that. And Jim, I get you when you say if Inglewood was in a tough spot, that's a different set of circumstances. If a city is struggling because something structurally has changed in their city, I could absolutely condone reducing their fees for a period of time. I don't believe that's the case with your city. It could be, I don't know your city that well, but I don't think anything structurally has changed with the city. So when you say we're reducing the dues, then what? That's a precedent. So what happens when Manhattan Beach Probably not, but some other city comes forward and says,
Could be.
I have my own argument for wanting the fees reduced.
Yeah.
Then what? We're on
Sure.
a slippery slope. I've been
For
through this with other nonprofit organizations. You go down a slippery slope where it's, what is the value? And then it becomes, what is the value individually to me as a member? That becomes problematic. I mean, I feel strongly about this. So we've had this conversation. I feel strongly that we should keep it the same. We can reconvene that committee. And if the results come out differently, I'm just saying they have not the last 5 years. Those committees have convened. The results have been the same. The fee structure works. Let's keep it the same. So that would be my vote would be we keep it the same.
So,
Oh, no, go ahead.
Me?
Are you can answer?
yeah, I was
what
just gonna
you-
respond. So we actually we were facing a structural deficit until we approved our budget just the last couple week ago. And we're teetering on it right now. So our revenue and expenses are, if there's nothing extraordinary, we might make the year without a deficit, operating deficit. I think the most important thing to consider is that with compared to all the cities here, Rolling Hill is an outlier. Our population, according to the table I have, is 1,919. I think it's closer to 1,800 actually. Our budget is just over $2 million. I don't think any city at this table has anything close to that as far as the population level or the budget size. So, you know, I think we're special in an unfortunate way because we are lumped in with some other cities that have much greater resources, whether it's their budget, whether it's their population, the infrastructure that they have. We don't have infrastructure. We don't have a city street in our city. You know, again, we don't have transit. We don't have a lot. We did get the internet. That's much appreciated, as did everybody else here. So again, I keep going back to the fact that we do receive benefits, but because of the size of our city, the size of our budget, our city council is looking for equity, not special treatment, but equity.
Yeah, just a quick question, then a quick comment. So Pat describes Rolling Hills as an outlier in terms of the per capita cost for membership in the COG. Just so I understand, and so everybody understands, is that because the fee structure has a minimum fee for a city?
And when it started, it had a $35 minimum, $3,500 minimum.
And that's been inflated as per the COLA or whatever over the 23 years. So it's now a different number, but it's the same minimum that the board adopted as the fee structure.
Original minimum.
Okay, my comment would be largely to echo Drew's comments. The mayor mentioned we want to keep the COG together. I think everybody does. You know, we all like each other.
Except for Jennifer.
But the reality is,
Just like the nicest one here.
Picture.
but I will say, to echo Drew's point, I think from where I sit, the worst thing we could do for unity among the COG going forward is to start to carve out exceptions on an ad hoc basis for people, because that's just gonna open the floodgates to people coming forward out of process to make an argument that they should get different treatment and special treatment, and, you know, laying down the gauntlet as Rolling Hills has, that, you know, here's the best we're gonna give you, or else we're walking away and all that stuff, which doesn't land very well from where I sit. But in any event, for that reason, respectfully, Pat, I won't be supporting that position.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. So let me tell you something. I always agree with Drew. I did it right now. He's a hell of a man. I'm gonna tell you that it was my understanding that this was a temporary situation, that it was a one-time thing. And I also understood that it was a political thing, that you wanted to go back and be able to tell your council that you got something for that. I don't agree that this should be permanent. If you're saying, hey, help me out so that I can help my council understand the value, and that Jack can put together a listing of the benefits, a listing of the benefits that you get, because, you know, when we mentioned the internet, you know, Metro made a contribution of Metro funds that I know, because I got it, I was a chair, that the city benefited from it. So I gotta tell you this, it would be short-sighted if you can afford it to drop out. That being said, if you have a political situation where you need to have some showing of good faith, and that you go back and show them what you guys get from it, I would be amenable to giving them the break this 1 year.
I would accept that.
But Drew is 100% right.
I would accept the 1 year limitation.
Right.
Go ahead.
Motion to give them the deal for 1 year.
And I'll second it.
See, I like that.
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Be clear on what the deal is.
Their offer was what, 3,000?
3,500 plus the 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think their full assessment was 6,000 and change, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it full assessment?
4,500.
8,800.
Oh, 88.
I thought it was like 85. No,
Do it
it's
for
60 under the new.
1 year,
do it for 1 year.
1 year.
We do half that amount?
Invoice was.
Ask
Invoice,
Hold on for a second. Let's get the exact number.
David, the invoice is 6817 plus 2,000. Right? Right.
And the 2,000
The
for the
2,000 is
assessment.
for the assessment and 6817 is the dues.
That works out to about half. Because it's 1,000 for the assessment they're willing to pay, and they're willing to pay 3,500. So is that the motion, that you're willing to accept what Rolling Hills has proposed?
Yes, and only because I saw on the, in the last meeting, they had a price per person based on population, and theirs was leaps and bounds above the next city, Rolling Hills Estate. So as a one-time courtesy, it's not even worth a continued discussion. We've had a budget meeting till 12:30 in the morning. Let's go. Let's make progress.
Okay, so it's just been seconded. Let's have a roll call vote.
We're gonna need 9 votes.
9 votes. Okay. Carson?
Yes.
El Segundo? No. Ardina? No. Hawthorne?
Yes.
Hermosa Beach?
No.
Inglewood?
Oh, you guys are like hard people. I tried, buddy. Yes.
Glendale?
Yes.
Kita?
Yes.
LA City, not present. Manhattan Beach?
No.
Estates?
Yes.
RPB? Yes. Redondo Beach?
Yes.
Rolling Hills?
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates? They vote on this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Rolling Hills can vote on this? Yes.
And Rolling Hills Estates is what?
They
No.
can.
Even matter.
Okay. Lawrence. Not present. County District 2. Present. District 4.
Yes.
So easy.
I count 10 yes.
I counted 8.
I got 10.
Who are the yeses again? Just
Okay,
confirm.
Carson is a yes.
Yes.
Hawthorne is a yes.
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 Inglewood is a yes.
Yes.
Lawndale is a yes. Lamita is a yes. EV Estates, RPV, Redondo, Rolling Hills.
Oh, I counted wrong.
District 2.
I counted,
sorry.
you're right.
10.
It's 10. I can't read my own writing.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Good luck.
Good luck.
So go back and tell them you brought home the bacon, right? And then tell them, be quiet next.
Vote has been had, but Mr. Chair, may I make a brief comment?
Yes, please.
My council from a fairly well-off city that does not benefit from many of the programs of the COG has also debated whether or not we should stay. But what has dawned on many of us, particularly having served on the COG during my prior service for 8 years, and then now I'm back in my 9th year, is that as soon as we leave our city limits, we touch roadways that connect our entire communities. Even though on a regular basis, I don't necessarily go to Inglewood, you should, are coming together
Yeah, right.
through this organization helps fund projects that impact all of us as a group. And my worry is something that Jackie touched on. Doesn't this not put in the minds now of some of our other members whether or not we really are paying too much for our percentage of number of residents? That is why I worry about where this might ultimately lead. But you have now gotten this this vote for a year. I really wish you well in trying to persuade your colleagues of the many benefits that they get to the organization, to leverage your city staff. And you know, I very much support your city staff. And I want your city to do well, and I welcome your staying a part of this larger regional.
Thank you. And I think it would be helpful. John said he would come to our next city council meeting, and I think that would be the opportunity to
Or
present.
Cedric, now that.
Oh, well,
Gonna be our chair.
I gotta tell you something.
how about both? But to present to our council, who is somewhat insular, and explain to them the benefits that they're receiving from the COG, even though they may not be seeing it within the city limits, because, you know, it's just not, it's not intuitive. You have to, it has to be presented in such a manner that you understand, oh, I see where those dollars, those benefits, those, you know, the different programs that COG manages and pushes forward, how it does benefit our residents. So I think a presentation by either you or Cedric at our next council meeting, which is Monday, would be very helpful.
And I'm always happy to go if Cedric doesn't want to go.
And you can tell them one more thing. You tell them that I'll never vote against Drew again ever in life.
I'll hold you to that.
Tell them that right now.
Very nice. Debbie, did you have a final comment?
Yeah, if you're gonna entertain another comment, it's kind of misleading though to go on the per person cost for Rolling Hills, because population is only half of the formula, and it's really misleading to go by per capita cost. And the other thing is, if you are a very small city, and if your city gets the same benefits as another city, internet or whatever, then the benefit per resident of Rolling Hills is outsized because you have fewer people in your city. So I want you to take that back to your council respectively, if you could. When is your council meeting?
Monday.
All right. Thank you.
You can be listening.
All right, good comment, Debbie. Next item.
Next item is the South Bay Environmental Services Center, and I think what is it on the patient, the report is on 117-121, and I just wanted to mention what she wanted me to mention to you this evening, which was that there will be a lot of more money for EVs and energy efficiency in 2024. We may have found a way to keep the Green Business Program going, which is in Torrance and El Segundo and Hawthorne program. We're close to finishing our goal of inventory on all of the city halls for their equipment and how efficient it is. And then the outreach team is very busy setting up cash for kitchens in the city of Torrance. And we have a lot of events scheduled in the next few months.
All right, thank you.
And the next item after that is the Metro report. I don't know if Mayor Butts wants to give the Metro report, and I know we have Mike Folke was here as well. Do you want to talk about what happened at Metro today?
Sure. Okay. So we had an election of officers today for the next term. Mayor Bass will become the chair. The city of Los Angeles gets it once every 3 years. Supervisor Hahn will be the vice chair. Again, the county did it once every 3 years. And then one of the mayors is second vice chair. And we independent cities are the chair every 3 years. And that'll be Director Dutra. Okay, and then we adopted on the C&K lines operating plan. The board adopted the C2 alternative as amended by Director Dutra. The conditions are no more than a 3-minute transfer at the AMC station for the C line passengers. Metros to evaluate travel patterns 2 years after the AMC opening. Return authority for rail operation plans to the CEO to avoid, it says politicization of operating plans. I didn't even know that's a word, but okay. And then report back on data and decision-making process to the board moving forward. This was unanimously approved. Express lanes pay-as-you-go pilot evaluation. Unanimously approved staff recommendations with the $8 processing fee, but it'll be different for Rolling Hills Estate. I'm kidding. But the $8 processing fee added to the express lanes charge. The $8 processing fee replaces the $25 fine. And then for the in-house security public safety implementation plan, the board approved a motion by Nigerian, Butts, Sandoval, Barger, and Bass to prepare a comprehensive implementation plan for the board to consider bringing public safety in-house and present the plan to the board in January 2024. Now, the big deal about security. Right now, the board contracts at about $750 million a year for the sheriff's department, the LAPD, and Long Beach to provide, security services for the lines. The big issue that has occurred, 9 years ago, I was on a public safety committee. And it was my recommendation that we geolocate police resources so that we knew that they were either on the platforms, on the trains, or on the buses. And then that was a big deal with unions, and it never happened. And so here we are at this point where the sheriff's department was primarily deploying their resources in cars. And having sheriff's deputies in cars is not helpful, because what we're looking for is presence on the platforms, on the buses, on the trains. That makes people feel at least some type of presence of public safety. And being a former law enforcement person for 37 years, running 3 police departments, I get it why they want to deploy them in cars, because you get 2 for 1. They're available to handle radio calls, okay? And they get their personnel financed. Well, we can't afford that anymore. It's not even a case of the dollars. It's a case of we need to get what we pay for. And so I've had talks with the commanders for both LAPD and the sheriffs, and they've committed that they are going to change. However, the LAPD has an overtime model, which means they provide their staff based on whoever signs up for overtime. You're not going to have a culture of service for something that cops don't ordinarily do. They're not going to want to ride trains on overtime. Somebody's worked 10 or 12-hour shift is not going to ride a train. And so we're at a crossroads, and that's why this drastic thing about considering going to the expense and turmoil to build a public safety agency, which is no easy thing to do. But we're at a point where we have to consider it, because we have to make it clear that we intend to get what we pay for when it comes to providing a presence, so that people that have cars will consider riding mass transit. I think it's the easiest way to put it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor.
Just a quick question. And doesn't the overtime also cost time and a half or something like that? So you're paying over and above the normal cost?
It's worse than that. You see, every hour that is billed, whether that's a straight time person or an overtime person, there's a roll up for a workers' comp assessment for, when cops go workers comp. There's a benefit assessment for the health and for medical and dental that cops are paid. So you're paying and an apportionment for their retirement too. So you pay an enormous fee per hour for a resource. And so it would be cheaper to go in-house. However, now that's going to depend in large part who the chief becomes of the organization, because you have to set a culture of service, not a culture of people that just say, oh, I come to work and I kick back. Because field resources are mobile people. The ratio of supervision is de minimis compared to the number of officers that you have working. So now you have to build an organization that is service oriented and has a culture of service. And right now, we have officers that are hired by other organizations, work for other cities, and this is a Tasty side order, and that doesn't work.
Yes, please.
Quick question. We heard what Supervisor Hahn had to say about it in terms of just concerns about costs. Would there need to be a supplemental funding source established to be able to pay for an an in-house?
No, because you would not contract with these outside entities.
So
you start with 750 million. It would have to be cheaper, because you're not going to get all these roll-ups that you get to have these other organizations.
If the metro is the jurisdiction of the county, or the Metro Board, why can't they send the sheriff deputies essentially to patrol all the lines? And essentially, direct the sheriff to form a subsidiary that's just dedicated to the Metro.
See, now you're making too much sense, okay? You're not in government.
Yeah.
But let me explain that to you here. First of all, the reality is this: if Metro had no security at all, the line runs within the county and it runs within several jurisdictions. But what would happen is any crime that occurred would be the responsibility to be investigated by the jurisdiction that it occurred in. And the reality is you will have no preemptive patrols, you will have no security services at the platforms. You'll just have people that take reports. If someone decides to wait around that's taking a train, to wait around for a police officer to show up to take a report, which they will not. And that's why the best barometer that you can have of people's perception of safety is both victimization and perceptional surveys that you take to see how people feel about riding the organization, riding the transit. It's not based, should not be based on the number of crimes that are reported, because it's very skewed and very de minimis.
Last question, how do you intend to recruit a whole force when everybody else is struggling to recruit officers right now?
You make too much stand. I didn't say, I told you, it'd be a very difficult proposition. And that will be noted, obviously, in the implementation plan.
There were two other issues that I got from Metro today. Did you mention option 2? On the operating plan for the Crenshaw line. And if you remember, we were talking about 3 options. Well, the board voted for option 2, it was a motion amended by Director Dutra. And there were several conditions, one being that the travel patterns would be evaluated 2 years after the opening of the airport.
I said that, Jack.
Did you say that? I'm really sorry. Then the second thing is, I missed that. Did you mention the express lanes?
See, hold on one second. Yeah, I did. I said that they unanimously approved staff recommendation.
Sorry.
$8 processing fee.
I completely missed it. I'm so sorry. Okay. So then,
Okay, and it seems like people are starting to filter out of here quick.
Gonna make one quick comment. I just wanted to thank Mayor Butts for his leadership, particularly with this Metro issue. We don't have a whole lot of riders of Metro Manhattan Beach, but what your efforts were, particularly for this option 2, helps preserve public transit for the South Bay. It was individual efforts by you, and I know your staff. And so thank you.
Appreciate you. You can tell the 2 people in your street goodbye. I want it for them, all right?
Education Committee and David, and we also have an action item.
Yeah, not too much from the Transportation Committee. The big discussion was the Crenshaw Green Line Operating Plan. There's also a presentation by Metro staff on the Express Lanes net toll revenue grant, cycle 3, I think it is. It's out right now. So if your cities are within 3 miles of the 110 freeway, there's a grant program open right now for you guys to apply for projects. And then I'll move on to the next action item, scope modification to Measure M project. This is a project led by Beach Cities Health District for a bike path that connects behind their property, cities of Torrance and Redondo Beach. They went through the design process. Redondo Beach is ready to move forward with their portion. Torrance is not ready to move forward with their section. So Metro is asking that the COG board just sign off on the scope modification to only build the Redondo Beach portion at this time. They still have the design, so when Torrance is ready, they can come back and apply for that second.
But we do get $100,000 back.
Yeah, whatever funds aren't spent, will come back to the pot for reallocation to another project.
Any questions or discussion? Yes, Court Counsel.
I'll read a note from our city manager. The bike path will improve safety and will be, and currently is, used heavily by our middle school and high school students. We're disappointed Torrance is not moving forward with its portion of the project. The hope is that by moving forward with ours, the Torrance residents who have opposed the improvements will see the value and eventually encourage Torrance to follow suit. Also, we think that some of the opposition by the Torrance residents has to do with other things Beach Cities Health District is doing related to their healthy living campus. So we encourage you to vote for this.
Is there a motion?
So move. So, yeah.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, reverse roll call.
Sorry, who was the motion?
Mayor Bright.
And the second was.
I'll second.
And I realize that since we have people online, I have to do a roll call vote for everything.
Okay, very good.
We'll make it quick. Carson,
Yes.
El Segundo,
Yes.
Gardena,
Yes.
Hawthorne,
Yes.
Formosa,
Yes.
Inglewood,
Yes.
Lawndale,
Yes.
Lamita,
Yes.
LA City's not present, Manhattan Beach.
yes.
Palos Verdes Estates,
Yes.
RPV,
Yes.
Redondo Beach,
Yes.
Rolling Hills,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Torrance is not present, District 2 is not present, and LA County District 4.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all.
Congratulations.
David, do you want to go on with the local travel network?
Sure. Local Travel Network, we are working with El Segundo on a pilot. Hopefully we'll be up and running in the next, by Labor Day, for sure. It'll be an incremental implementation of the larger project to see if we need as many of the infrastructure improvements as we've kind of planned out. Following that, we'll continue work with the remaining cities on your route refinement, preparing Measure M applications for next year. I think that's about it for right now.
Next is SCAG Housing Forums and REAP. Jonathan just had a successful housing forum today. Jonathan, do you want to give a very brief report?
Yeah, thank you. Regional Early Action Planning is the acronym here, REAP. This is State Accelerated Housing Efforts, and we're going to talk about REAP 1. REAP 1 is the current program that is active right now. We have 3 projects. ADU Acceleration is an empirical study of accessory dwelling units in 8 South Bay cities. The consultant has provided and gotten back comments from us on an ADU survey, housing policy comparison report, an ADU forecast, and we are going to be receiving another draft regarding the city infrastructure impact analysis. So, what are ADUs potentially having an impact on the city infrastructure? So all of that will be reviewed and given back to the consultant next week. And we are getting very close to the finish line. We're just about done. They're also drafting the final report, and we will have this wrapped up very soon and their findings presented to this board in late summer. The next project under REAP 1 is the Commercial Redevelopment into Housing project. That is a study of what would it take to convert underperforming commercial in the South Bay into housing. We have reviewed several drafts, and we had a meeting with our consultants today. We're getting very close to the finish line. We have things like redevelopment profiles, amendments to local regulations, test fits for sites that we've located. So kind of like proposed hypothetical design, and another infrastructure impact analysis of converting commercial into housing. We will get that wrapped up very soon, and we'll get the comments back to that consultant team early next week. That project will wrap, and we will present those findings as well to our board in late summer. And then the third and final project under REAP 1 is the one Jackie just mentioned. It was the 8th session of our online housing education forum. It was today. The topic was planning for land use and transportation in the South Bay. Our speakers were Alan Pullman from Studio 111 and Emily Finkel from Fair and Piers. We had 25 attendees, a bit of the higher end there from all of our different sessions. It was a very lively and educational presentation and Q&A. Already sent out the post-event survey and already getting lots of positive responses from our audience members. And good news, we are adding 2 new sessions to the Housing Education Forum. We're going to add a session that covers the ADU Acceleration Project and a session that covers commercial redevelopment into housing, so we can open up the learning and the findings. Those are TBD right now in terms of the days, but we will likely have those as sessions later in the summer. So that wraps up REAP 1. Now I'll briefly talk about REAP 2. That is the upcoming round of funding. So REAP 2 is about implementation, bringing things into the world. The first option is the sub-regional partnership non-competitive earmark. And we have two projects that we submitted today. Got it into SCAG today. One is the South Bay Regional Housing Trust, and two is commercial redevelopment into housing phase 2. So an extension and continuation and expansion of our current project. So those are going to be evaluated by SCAG. We will hear back from them on their determination likely in July, and the conditional award of funds will be in August with kind of a formal start in January. And then the second option under REAP 2 is the Metro competitive option. So this is competitive with all other potential applicants, whereas the sub-regional partnership is an earmark that was not competitive. The Metro competitive option, we submitted that back in May 9th. Project 1 is on neighborhood mobility hubs. Project 2 is on residential micro parking to increase EV sales, electric vehicle sales in residences in South Bay's communities, cities, and we will hear back from SCAG next month. And it'll be the same kind of timeline, conditional award of funds in August with those projects starting in January. And I will say we feel very confident about our applications. We really came together and put strong applications forth to SCAG.
Let me just add on the housing trust, the city managers have met twice now. They've gone through through a draft joint powers authority document. There's a lot of decisions that will need to be made in that document, like who's going to be the member of the housing trust and what fees there might be. What they're going to be doing is bringing that back to the COG board in the next month or two, and then they're going to bring it back to individual cities to find out exactly who's going to be up and running. The SCAG money that you're talking about, that Jonathan's talking about, is to really put some flesh on the bones, which is talking to developers about what the opportunities are, looking at what the financial structure could be, figuring out job descriptions, who's going to be running this thing and how it's going to work. So it's not, the city managers discussed whether it would be the first year funding. It isn't first year funding, this money. This money is what are the nuts and bolts of how this organization is actually going to work. So you'll be hearing a lot more about it in the next couple of months.
I was going to add that all your city managers that participate are putting a lot of work into this. And so I understand that this is a great document that's been submitted. So thank your city managers for helping out.
Let me just amend. They've been discussing this at meetings. Not all the city managers have been there. It'd probably be a good idea for you to ask your city manager if they've looked at this document.
That's the I do the Karen.
There you go.
Thank you, Jackie. Next item.
Next item is the fiber network. I have nothing to report, but there will be some information that I will be reporting next month. Homeless services next after that.
Since my item's on consent, I'll just make it really quick. And I can do the next three too, agenda items. The homeless count. So the homeless count's coming out July 1. On our July 5th homeless task force meeting, we'll be reviewing it. We're also looking about our South Bay youth programs, trying to get more exposure to that. And we'll have an update on Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations. The SPY Health Working Group, we haven't actually had a meeting for the last 4 meetings, so nothing to report there. And our senior services meeting in July is going to be postponed due to schedule conflicts. I don't know, Britt, if you want to add anything else, but we're going to put that to September.
Yeah, we'll let you know. It'll probably be second week in August or something. Yeah.
Well, so we're going to still try to do some field trips.
Yeah, we are. I'm actually going to Orange County next week to tour their Be Well OC campus. Orange County is going to be one of the first counties to do the airports, even before LA County. So we're gonna I'm going with one of our assistant city managers, Orange, to go view it, to preview the tour.
Very good. Thank you, Ronson.
No, we've been working on the tours. It's taking longer. Okay, now it's your item. This is the election of officers.
Oh, wow.
Nomination open, so you. Nomination.
Okay, so 131 in your COG agenda. And so the nominating committee, as we mentioned, when we developed a slate of officers, put forward Cedric Hicks as the chairman, Rodney Tanaka as first vice chair, and Chris Pimentel as second vice chair. As it notes in the May 25th board meeting, council member Bernadette Suarez came forward and also was nominated by council member Obaji. And so there are currently 2 nominees for the second vice chair. And I guess we open it up for any additional nominations. Okay, it looks like there are none, so I think we could vote on the first two.
We need a motion to close the nominations.
Oh, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, can we do a reverse roll call on this one?
I don't think we're allowed to. I'll go right through it though. Carson,
Yes.
El Segundo,
Yes.
Gardina. Yes. Hawthorne,
Yes.
Hermosa,
Yes.
Inglewood,
Yes.
Lawndale,
Make it interesting.
Yes.
Lumita,
Yes.
LA City's not present, Manhattan Beach.
Yes.
EV Estates.
Yes.
RPV,
Yes.
Redondo,
Yes.
Rolling Hills,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Orange not present, District 2 not present, and District 4.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. So that's been closed. So we have one nominee for chair, that's Cedric Hicks, and one nominee for first vice chair, Rodney Tanaka. Is there a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Third?
Did it was Mayor Butts and Mayor Boyles.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I will not say reverse roll call again.
Carson,
Yes.
El Segundo,
Yes.
Gardina,
Yes.
Hawthorne,
Yes.
Hermosa,
Yes.
Inglewood,
Yes.
Lawndale,
Yes.
Lamita,
Yes.
LA City's not present, Manhattan Beach.
Yes.
EV Estates,
Yes.
RPV,
Yes.
Redondo,
Yes.
Rolling Hills,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Orange not present, District 2 not present, and District 4.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hail the king.
Okay, so we're not done yet.
No.
Okay, so there are two nominees for the second vice chair. Are there any further? I guess there's no more we closed the nominations for everyone, correct? So good. Well, I think Chris is not here. So I do want to give both nominees an equal time to give a quick speech on why they want to be nominated. Unfortunately, one of the nominees isn't here. Was he expected to join us online?
I don't
I
think so.
doubt it. I don't know if did he know he was gonna say a few words?
I haven't been, we didn't mention
Yeah.
that. The other thing is that.
I mean, I can say a few words on his behalf. if
Oh,
it's
that would be
appropriate.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, okay, do you want to do that first?
I've worked with you, Bernadette, a long time on COG. I know you'll do a great job in leadership of the nominating committee. We talked about two great candidates, who's best served for this role at this time as chair. And given that Chris has led the transportation committee, which is very technical in nature and a committee in itself, I felt and the nominating committee felt that he was the right person for the second vice chair at this time. He's demonstrated that he can understand the technical complex issues, represent the COG well, dig in. And so that's what we came up with the nominating committee, and that's but I know you'll do a great job too. So,
Thank you, Drew.
yeah.
Okay, Bernadette.
So Bernadette Suarez, City of Lawndale. So I'm heading forward because I served a couple years as an alternate, about 5 years now as a delegate. And for me, I felt it's very important that the chair position rotate. Our city is very small. There's large cities. We spent 30 minutes talking about how different and diverse our cities are. And so I also get pushback sometimes from my council. And I think that when we're all great leaders, we're all voted in to our office to represent our cities. And so I think that that's why it's important that the chair seat rotate. And so that each city gets their representation in that chair. And so that's the reason why I felt compelled. And so thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Can I just have one point of clarification?
Of course.
That the officers must be delegates. So Chris would have to become the delegate.
Okay,
That's easy.
So there-
I'm glad we give up the role.
Oh,
Not enough time to go.
So he's the alternate right now? Yeah. Chris, or is that a girl? Yeah.
okay, so in terms of the actual vote, is we just voting one or the other during our roll call?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a choice, one or the other. Your city's called, go ahead and say, and we will count that, and whoever has the most will win.
I would just-
Discussion.
If I could add in the discussion, at the steering committee, the emphasis was that El Segundo had just been represented by Drew much more recently. And that Lawndale hadn't had a chance for a long time.
Well, last Jim was chair when?
2016.
He was speaking for me and that was.
I remember him as chair,
2018,
yeah.
So.
I guess if there's any further comments. You, go ahead.
Sure, I'll make a comment. First, Lawndale has certainly sided with Redondo Beach relative to the sea line extension, and that's extremely important to the residents in our city, so that weighs heavily on me. I will say I saw Mr. Pimentel, Councilmember Pimentel, lead the steering committee and a couple of meetings, and he's a great leader as far as these meetings goes, and our meetings go, and I'm all for efficiency, and he's super efficient. But I did nominate Councilmember Suarez because going back to Mayor Boyle's having been chair, and we just heard in this discussion earlier that El Segundo, despite having a smaller number of people, has larger coffers. And so I think it's important that we consider those both at the top and at the bottom to lead this organization and give us perspective from both sides. And I'm sure Chris will probably be the next vice chair, but that's what I'll be supporting, or second vice chair, but that's what I'll be supporting Councilmember Suarez here.
Thanks. Mayor Butts.
That's your Chris, right, Drew?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you want to make this political, right?
No, it's not.
Okay, so let me tell you something. Lawndale is like right next door to us. I know your mayor very well and love Lawndale to death. But I'm gonna say this for Chris. He did lead that committee very effectively. He's a really great guy, and so I don't think you can go wrong with either or. But I would tell you that I just have experience with Chris, and I'll be supporting him.
Yes, very.
So that really makes me uncomfortable when you say, so I want to give you a chance to walk this back if I misunderstood. Do you want to support somebody because their city is supporting you on something?
We're aligned.
That's what it sounded like.
Okay, so we are aligned on the Metro sea line extension, and we've had discussions about that. That's very important to me. I haven't been on the COG long enough. I just started attending these meetings two months ago or so. So I haven't got a total feel for everything that goes on here. With that said, I've got to talk to Councilmember Suarez. I appreciate what she represents. I've watched the meeting where they endorsed the COG, the Metro Sea Line extension route. I appreciate her input, and frankly, I'd like to see a woman leader here. I'd like to see a woman of color. I think that's important, that she represents a different community than might be President El Segundo, and we promote our diverse leaders.
Thank you.
Alex? And you're muted.
Hey, Cedric, I'm gonna take my vote. I want diversity.
Okay, okay, so my question actually go back to Jackie's point that Chris is not a delegate, he's an alternate. So that means he should not have been nominated for second vice chair.
No, as long as at the time of July 1st, he's a delegate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's my decision.
Yeah, and that's, yeah, so,
I make those
so it's not an issue. I just wanted to say.
Okay, so in my view, yes, Chris have done an outstanding job, especially on the transportation committee and et cetera. But I believe I'm going to support Bernadette Suarez because we need a woman amongst those men. Because all men. So we need a woman, and I think Bernadette Suarez is the key for over there to keep them insane over there.
Can I just make one comment? I don't want it to go based off of those, I think what's important here too is being a leader isn't just one subject also. I think Drew knows best. He had to serve during a time COVID. No one expected that. And so I think being a leader means that, that there's multiple things that hit you, and that's what we're looking for. And that's what I want to go back to is I think it's important for whoever that all our cities get representation. And so to me, that's what a leader is. I think all of us are qualified. So You know, I think it's important that all of us get representation. I think we're so diverse. Our cities are very different, have different needs, and I think that speaks a lot to this organization and each city getting the chance to represent their community.
Thank you, Bernadette. Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and run the roll call and choose the person, either Pimento or Suarez, and whoever has the majority will win.
Can I just pose one question?
Sure.
Mayor Boyles, do you get to appoint him and is he subject to approval by the council?
No, it's my decision.
Okay, all right.
Thanks for asking.
Power. Oh, my God.
Very little, but it's the one thing I. Man, hold the gavels. It's exciting. Eat it.
Okay, Carson,
Suarez.
El Segundo,
A Pimentel.
Gardena,
Flores.
Hawthorne,
Suarez.
Hermosa,
Two great choices, Suarez.
Inglewood,
I had my one disagreement with Drew.
Earlier you were.
Mondale,
Flores.
Lamita,
Pimentel.
LA City's not present, Manhattan Beach,
Two great choices. I'm following the nomination committee. Pimentel.
EV Estates,
Suarez.
Rancho Palos Verdes,
Suarez.
Redondo Beach,
Yeah, so board arrest Suarez.
Rolling Hills,
Suarez.
Rolling Hills Estate,
Suarez.
Torrance, District 2, President, and District 4.
Suarez.
Okay. Hey. I think with that, we.
No, we have.
allowed the-
No.
Cedric is.
No.
I can't just look it up and leave.
I was gonna.
Just close.
Anyway.
Man.
Growing John has met us in the last year and it's been a tumultuous year and we're coming out of the pandemic and had hybrid meetings and everything that happened within this entire world. He was able to keep this organization on some type of train track that didn't derail. And we're continuing going down this track, but on behalf of the South Bay COG and all of the cities, we want to bestow for you this plaque that represents all of the cities. We talked about all of the programs that are being done here at the COG under your tutelage for the last year. We want to say thank you for what you've done. You've been unique in the process of how making it happen. And beyond that, we wanted to give you this plaque. And not only that,
Cool, that's nice.
not only that.
And there's more.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nice.
So when you have some free time to just sit and want to read, we have a book. It represents everything that you've done.
Nice.
Blake.
That's the part. Oh. Blank page, I'm saying. So. Totally memorialized.
Thank you so much.
We have a list of individuals that are here wanting to give you presentation. I know we had a list of people, but so many people have left.
Right, well, maybe the people, cities can all just.
Can all the cities come to the front and then just line up and
And then we have.
just go down the road? Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
So where were you?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, not my problem. It's sitting right there.
They see the backs of our heads.
No, but isn't that? Oh my God, did I think of this? Hold on. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Can we make a suggestion and have John Trushank actually on camera for those of us?
See
You can go back to.
Whoa.
Right there, that corner. You can use somebody.
That might be hard.
John.
You had to brought it, it was sitting there. when I was talking.
Moving down. You can see us there.
Okay, you guys.
There we go.
So check this out. In Inglewood, we give the biggest plaques in the South Bay. Okay, but here's the deal. The company's going out of business. We bought their last 200 plaques.
So we have to be choosy about who we give these to. So John, we chose to give one of the last 200 to you. And there's a lot of great things to be said here, but there's a million people who want to give these.
Yeah, don't read all these.
So,
things.
so we just want to take this picture and tell you that we appreciate your service.
We all in it or just you?
I want to, darling.
1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you, Mayor Butts. And just so everyone knows, I was born in Inglewood, so. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, John, you might have been born in Inglewood, but you were raised in. I was raised. And I knew when you were in diapers, you would be a great sheriff.
Wow.
Congratulations. You did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Your fingers in the.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, great.
Unfortunately, we're on a budget, so I got paper. We're a poor, small city, but thank you.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Congratulations.
Damage. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Do some of my business in Gardena. I have a story for every state.
Play smart.
I really appreciate it.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. I tilt this way. Here you go.
Thank you for everything that you do for this organization and the peninsula as a whole.
Mayor, how are you?
I'm good.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We're meeting for.
What I would say is I appreciate how you were in it here, so that when you came to our over the bridge dedication, it wasn't just a ceremonial. Point out the different structure of the bridge. You get what the. You increase it.
Okay, all right. I'll tell her.
Thank you.
All right, picture.
No picture didn't have.
Is that your cigar?
It's coming out.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
It doesn't go on Instagram, it didn't happen.
Oh, that's where. That's my sensei on Facebook.
Hey, Pat.
That's why I'm on.
Good conscience, my city cannot give a wood plaque. It would be just our annual card, you know. We only give out about 2 a year. So. Oh, okay. 2 a year.
1, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Right?
So I will only read from the first 4 pages. Whereas. One thing I really appreciate is that right off the bat, you were out there meeting with each of us and finding out what was going on in our city. And that really mattered. And I could see the difference from throughout the year because you were in touch with the things that we all had going on, and which made it so you could help us all do a better job. So thank you very much for your hard work this year, and let's get a picture.
All right.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
And you can put these in a large box and have it at home.
Yeah, I would say that every city is unique, and it's really interesting visiting with all of you. And for those of you that I didn't get a chance, some of the newer people, I'd love to, even though I'm not chair anymore, I'd love to come visit with you. It's pretty fun.
I have to echo what Barry said. I think actually that communication helps save our membership for our city. I was able to convince them based off of working together with you and Jackie, so I really do appreciate it.
I'm really glad you stayed.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Man.
So you guys can change the air back.
the next year and watch any of these meetings.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, let's get.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
That's fine.
Oh, he's looking for Redondo. North Redondo.
Yeah, which district?
North 5. Yeah, I was on the Harbor Commission.
You don't know how much of a gentleman John is. The job he's done. First time I met him, I sat next to him and then I read the beach room next week. He got COVID. And I called him and I was like, "There's he's like, I'm pretty good. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Luckily, I didn't get it. I ended up getting it 2 years later. But what I will say is in his day job, he runs an engineering firm and they are repairing the Hermosa Beach Pier. So come on down to Hermosa Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Take a look at the work John's firm has done. They've been outstanding.
Oh, very
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for everything.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. It's great work.
And all the cities.
Except for the chair.
You're left. Oh, okay. All right, well, John, so no matter what city you were born, raised, had a business in, or represent.
Yeah.
They are all in the 66th Assembly District. So on behalf of Assembly Member Almers, thank you very much for everything that you've done for the South Bay cities.
Very nice. Clever. 1, 2, 3.
That I won't mention, I live in Long Beach.
Then you blow my whole.
Of course. John, for those that don't know me, I'm Jasmine Leon Guerrero, District Representative for State Senator Stephen Bradford. And on behalf of the office and the Senator in the 35th Senate District, which include Inglewood, Hawthorne, Lawndale, and Carson, we just want to congratulate you and thank you so much for your leadership for steering this huge ship that is South Bay COG and great captain. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate that. Let's get a photo.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, John. Yes.
He's the last bit, I'm not.
Come on in.
I know from when I worked for the COG, how much work goes into the chair position. And there's a lot of behind the scenes work that the chair does, and I know you work really hard at it. So on behalf of the supervisor, I have this role for you. Congratulations.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I sure will.
All right, John, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Man, I
Family
gotta
friend.
think about everybody who stuck it out, and the family friends. So I met John's mom when I was first running for El Segundo City Council, even though I didn't win, but this wonderful woman who I met at the door and had my back ever since. So that was my little story. And later in life, he ends up.
About 2.5.
So, either way, and I'm sorry, but Director Williams was here and he had to leave, so we had 2 out of 5, but we John, all the work you've been doing here at the COG.
Prepare the
To give you a token of appreciation.
patio there. It's got a big, big house in her. 1, 2, 3. Back. 1, 2, 3. And so the soil is not really suitable.
A lot of words. Is that what you said?
I was gonna make the joke that I was gonna read it, but. Yes, Cedric, by the way, now you're on, John, you okay?
Is that you want one of these? Yeah.
Because they got a metro and they got wheels turning.
That's what these pictures, I just want to reinforce, that's what that is. I hope you do. I will.
Is you there? But you want achieve during your.
This is the first time that District 11, right?
Yeah.
That's been to one of these.
I.
This is terrific. Thank you so much. Get a photo.
You bring everybody out.
Yeah, everybody.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
And we're just the first seating, right? There's another group.
Oh, I'll make sure.
Waiting with Maitre D outside.
Hello.
I think Luke would be good at that. Coming to visit us in Lawndale?
Oh, is he? Okay.
Is he? Part of your.
He is.
your,
He's
your
her
class.
deputy.
Are you coming with him?
In spite of all the conversation of. Carson has been, has always been.
Hey, the new chair's talking.
Hey.
Paid against other communities in regards to.
So this is where.
pay, And they feel as though what we pay is less based upon population. They always keep saying it's population. But we took care of that process again. Just like you left me the last time. But we made it happen, and I just want to say, John, thanks for all the work that you've done and all this. Couldn't have done anything following your shoes, so we're happy as good as you.
I will say that if you've never sat down for lunch with senators or gotten to know him, it's an amazing story. Please. You gotta hear all his accomplishments are.
My life should actually be a reality.
Yeah, no. That's.
Trust me.
Now we're all.
One, two, three. 2, 3. Great.
I'm the seat.
Like when I tell people that I'm teaching ceramics in prison, I don't, but who could make that up?
I didn't.
Hey, let's do.
Adjourn the meeting. Have some.
Are we gonna, everybody group by the map in the front?
For those that remain.
You guys, we're gonna do a group photo.
Let's see, Debbie.
And if you didn't get your cake, you can come back and get it. They won't lock the door.
Is a. There.
You could get sick from cake.
Oh, we're done.
I thought you can't have your cake if you do too.
Yeah.
No, and even.
Congratulations.
You're going to-
I don't know.